today is, are we recording? Okay, it's 6:31. Today is July 24th. This is a regular.
Recording in progress.
This is a regular select board meeting. And I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:31 PM. I'm Pam Smith, Chair of the Select Board. I'm joined by Mary Layton, Vice Chair. Nice to have you back in the room, Mary.
Thank you.
And Priscilla Vincent. Online, we have Roger Arnold and Marcia Calloway.
Roger here?
As well as our town manager, Brennan Duffy. Could we get the block turned off on the screen there? Thank you. Okay, all right, first order of business is to approve the agenda. So would someone like to make a motion to approve? Oh, sorry, we need to do a couple of things. We need to table item number 6, the tax rate setting. We're going to be doing that tomorrow at 12:30 PM, and that meeting has already been warned. And we need to table number 13, subcommittee appointments. We'll be doing that on August 14th. So that's 2 changes we need to make to this agenda. So, all right, Marcia, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to keep number 6 because I think we need to discuss the open meeting law violations.
We've not received any formal complaints of open meeting law violations, so I mean, we can keep it on the agenda, but with not having an open meeting law complaint, I'm not sure that that's something that we should be discussing.
That hasn't stopped us before, so I think we should do it.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
So you're just tabling 13?
Well, I'm suggesting we table 6 until tomorrow at 12:30 PM and 13 to August 14th. So tabling 2 items, 6 and 13. Marcia has suggested we keep 6 on the agenda. So it's up to whoever makes the motion to propose their version of what they would like to.
Okay, then
Second comment? Second comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to keep 13 as well, because I think it's actually rather quick. And if we get there and we can't, for some reason, manage it, we could table it at that point. But I think we need to address it because we're on notice that we have problems.
And who will we be appointing? Do you have a list? I don't have a list.
Nope, we're talking process.
I see. Okay, I wasn't clear on that. Thank you. So do we have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
All right, thank you, Roger. Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second.
All right, any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marcia, how do you vote?
No, as to 2.
Roger, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I'm a no. Okay. The next item is the chair's report. I don't have much to say on that tonight, other than I've met a few times with the town manager to talk about the agenda and the tax rate setting, just to keep things moving along. Number 3, public comments for items not on the agenda. Is there someone who would like to make a public comment? Lily, come on up.
Lily Tryman, Town Clerk. I have 2 things to mention that aren't on the agenda, neither of which are terribly critical, but Marcia and Roger, you both have things in your mailboxes in Tracy Hall. So the next time you're passing through town, if you don't mind coming to grab them, that would be awesome. And I just wanted to remind everybody who's tuning in that absentee ballots are available from the clerk's office for the elections on August 13th. You can call me, email me, come in, send carrier pigeon, or any other way you can communicate to me that you would like an absentee ballot. I can also hand it to you in the office and you can vote early. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll take this opportunity to read the thank you card that we received from Dan and Witz. To the members of the Select Board, thank you for your support and efforts to help us resolve our licensing issue. Our license was reinstated on Tuesday, July 23rd, after approval from the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Sincerely, Carolyn and Laura and the Dan and Witz crew. So it was very nice of them to
Nice.
send us a card. All right, we seem to have that blot back up on the screen. Well, maybe it's me.
Lot.
No, I've got it. It was on mine. Sorry, I get confused. All right, number 4, committee appointments. We have 2 appointments tonight. One is Alex Northern has stepped forward and offered to be nominated as the town health officer. I believe Alex is on vacation this week. Is that right, Brennan? Okay, so he won't be with us tonight, but I think we all know who he is. So does anyone have any questions or comments about Alex being nominated for our town health officer? Priscilla?
I'd just like to give an enthusiastic thank you to Alex for being willing to do this. And it's wonderful. I mean, he is an EMT. He's fully qualified. He's also a director of emergency planning. And what a great thing to have him as town health officer.
Mary?
I also think Alex is very qualified. I'd like to know what he finds out. I'd like to know what the health issues are in town, and especially as relating to rentals in town. So
Okay, well,
things like mold and things like that.
yeah, feel free to reach out to him once he's back in the job, back from his vacation. Marcia, go ahead.
I'd like to echo what Mary said, because I know Alka Dev had mentioned that there was some, habitability complaints, and we don't have any regulations per se. And this seems like a natural and necessary intersection between the town health officer, fire, EMS, planning, and the town plan. I think we need to ensure that the affordable housing stock we have is not only identified, but regulated. And we can't forget we're on the doorstep of a college with lots of student renters, as well as a variety of local residents who use the residential rental housing. And the lack of regulation is a serious oversight in the first instance, and a gaping hole when a town health officer needs a protectionary regulation to enforce something that needs to be fixed. So I hope Alex listens to this, and that we can start seeing collaboration so that those intersections can, and networks can start being built to the benefit of the community.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Brennan can convey some of these concerns to Alex when he returns from his vacation. All right. If there are no further comments, I would entertain a motion to nominate Alex as our next town health officer.
I move to nominate Alex Northern as the Norwich Town Health Officer for appointment by the Vermont Health Commissioner for the remainder of an unexpired term ending October 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Priscilla. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Oh, yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, we'll get Alex to fill out the proper forms and get those off to the Vermont Health Commissioner when he is back from his vacation. Okay, and then the next appointment is Watt Alexander to the Upper Valley River Subcommittee of Connecticut River Joint Commission. Hi, Watt. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have your application here with lots of great information about your interest and your background. Is there anything you'd like to add to what you have here on the form?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a largely advisory commission, so it's not as though it has quasi judicial powers or anything. So it's pretty low threshold in terms of authority, and it's just broadly an interest of mine in terms of watersheds. So I think that's really what's motivating me here.
All right, great, thank you. Does anyone have a question for what?
I noticed that it says there's one seat with no term of expiration. And that there are an unlimited number of alternates.
Yeah.
So what you wish for.
We're very grateful.
I checked the exit in the bylaws, so I know how to get out.
You're willing to step up. Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any comments or questions for what? Marcia, go ahead.
I just want to emphasize how important I think this is. And I think that it can't be overestimated what damage can be done to our community and the region. And so I'm delighted to see an attorney stepping up to do this. And I think that it'll be a massive benefit to have that legal education. It'll benefit us all. So thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to appoint Watt Alexander to the Upper Valley River Subcommittee of Connecticut River Joint Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Priscilla. All right, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. It's unanimous. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5, an update from the listers. And Cheryl, would you like to come up and give us an update on where things stand?
Sure.
Thank you.
Cheryl Lindbergh on the Board of Listers. Well, you're aware that we have posted a meeting, warned a meeting to lodge the grand list tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the town clerk. Our meeting will take place first, and then we always then walk to the town clerk's counter and process the document there. So that'll happen tomorrow morning. With that said, just a recap, we issued 51 change of assessment notices for properties that had a change due to building permits, mainly building permits. And we had 5 grievances on those letters that went out. We had 2 additional grievances that came in that were people who were aware that the abstract had been posted, saw the listserv post about the filing of the abstract. And so we had 2 additional grievances from 2 other individuals. And then we issued 159 change of current use value notices, which go out to all of the current use owners. And we had 2 grievances from that, which were really more of an educational grievance request. It wasn't that they were actually grieving something within the document as being wrong. They questioned us and asked us again, the current use letters, the current use program is a state of Vermont program. It is not a town program. And so we do our best as the messenger with the letters that go out to work with people that may want to ask questions. And that's basically what happened. We did site inspection.
On the current use, was that every single current use parcel had a change from the state?
Yeah, that would be an allocation from the state. And I can't honestly tell you that they all had changes, but we issue all the letters regardless, because I don't want to miss.
Sure.
So we do all of them instead of.
Okay. So
And then through the change of assessment grievances we did 3 inspections, site inspections during that process, which was very helpful, and getting the interior property dwelling and all correct and all on that. So those will go out tomorrow. Those responses to the grievances will be mailed tomorrow when the grand list is lodged. Any questions?
Does anyone have a question for Cheryl on the process or where we are? Marcia, go ahead.
So, yes, Cheryl, for the process, did you warn the grievances with an agenda? And did you take, were they sorted so that they can be kept for 30 days minimum as required by the new law? And I know your minutes came out today, was a day late, but they came out. So I'm assuming that the minutes covered all the grievances, but what about the agenda and the recording?
So the agenda, Marcia, goes out with the filing of the abstract. And that is the announcement to the town that there is a grievance period ahead and the dates in which we will hear that. Those are posted in 5 places throughout the town. Those 5 places are Tracy Hall, the bulletin board, the post office, Dan and Witt's, and the library. And that information also went out on the listserv that next day as well. So it alerted people to the announcement of the grievances and that. We don't have a particular agenda for grievance hearings. We set up a schedule and we start at 9 a.m. and we just make a list of those that are coming in to do an in-person or just want to do a written grievance. Our grievance process didn't end until Monday. We did our last inspection. And so that was, in my opinion, the end of the grievance hearings. So the draft minutes came out before the 5-day period. So that would have been the reason that they came out when they did. And your last question, grievance hearings weren't, in my understanding, needing to be recorded. We are recording our lister meetings. And I understood that the lister meetings did need to be warned and recorded. And we have done that. We did that at our July 3rd meeting, and we're doing that tomorrow with the listers meeting to lodge the grand list.
Marcia, go ahead.
So it doesn't sound like it was knowingly or intentional violations, but Cheryl, you need to look at the VLCT documents. An agenda must be created, and you have to have your draft minutes. It says after the date of each hearing. And as a decision-making body, listers are non-advisory, which means that you have to be electronically recording those. So there's some problems with this. You can see that, I hope.
No, I didn't, Marcia. So thanks for bringing it up and giving your view on it. I will check with VLCT on the hearings. The grievances aren't a decision-making moment for the listers. We're listening and gaining information from those who are grieving. So I didn't interpret that as a time where we needed to record anything. So that being the case, our grievance period wasn't even a week long. We could have extended the grievance period for 7 days, and that's how long it's open. So again, we were done earlier, so we were able to do the draft minutes as quickly as possible. But we had a week to hold grievances, but we shortened it with the ability to have fewer. I guess I absolutely will look into that. Thank you.
I'll send you the citations so that you have something to talk about with them.
Sure.
All right, any other questions or comments for Cheryl? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you.
All right, number 6, the tax rate setting. Everyone knows that we are expecting to set that tax rate tomorrow at 12:30 with a special meeting that's been warned. And Marcia, so you said you wanted to discuss the process. So do you have something you'd like to share with us? Comment?
Yeah, my concern is that under 32 VSA 5292, I found, you can read that yourself, but I found two cases where taxpayers contested the grand list based on lister qualifications and or compliance with statutes. In both cases, the taxpayers had failed to object within the statutory period required by law. So they failed on that point. But the statutory period to complain is a period of 2 months from November 15th of each year in which the tax is assessed. So based on that, I think we have to recognize that there could be a challenge to the list. And I'm just concerned about that. And I think at the least, there should be perhaps, I don't even know what to do about it, but it seems to me that in terms of curing, it might be a good idea to have another hearing and just ratify what they did. That's under, it's not really covered under penalties and enforcement because I'll let you read that statute yourself, but I don't know what else to do about it. However, I'm concerned about this process. I'm concerned that we could be approving a tax rate that and then have the grand list challenged. And that I don't know what happens.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment? Cheryl, you want to come up and speak?
Could you restate, Marcia or Madam Chair, could I ask her to restate your point? We had the abstract filed and we opened up a grievance period by statute, which is 2 weeks from that date at 4:30, 2 weeks later, that had to have a grievance in writing at Tracy Hall. And we were able to follow through and check for anybody's grievance at 4:30 on Wednesday, the 17th. So I'm not quite sure what you're pointing at. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, it's 32 VSA 5292A, and it provides a taxpayer shall not contest the validity of any tax assessed against his or her person, personal property, or real estate, nor the validity of the action of the listers or the select board in assessing such tax, nor the validity of any grand list, unless the taxpayer filed his or her objections to the validity thereof in the office of the town clerk, where the tax is assessed within a period of 2 months from November 15 of each year in which the tax is assessed.
November 15th?
That's what it says.
I have never heard of this. I'm very unclear as to what your concern is because we followed the statutory timeline that we very carefully maintain in our office. So I don't see a concern over the lodging of the grand list at all.
Cheryl, you've been a lister for what, 14, 15 years now? Have you ever had this experience?
I haven't, and I really want to look at that statute to see what it's talking about. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's sounds like it's not a big threat. Roger, go ahead.
I think I'm just trying to understand the concern. So, Marcia, are you suggesting that because there may or may not be a violation of the open meeting law that may or may not contest the validity of the grand list itself? And so is that the concern?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Priscilla, go ahead.
It just seems that this gets into such a tangle. I don't see how the town can get anything done. I mean, wait till November when we lodge the grand list, whatever, we set the tax rate and somebody in November can come in and say, hey, I don't like it. I don't know, this doesn't seem like a productive way forward to me in terms of just doing the town's business.
Roger, go ahead.
I think what you could do if anyone other than Marcia believes there is validity to the open meeting law violation, you should just take the necessary actions to cure it. So that way there would be no grounds for a contesting of the grant list on that basis. So like a better safe than sorry logic.
If I understood correctly, I heard Marcia say, hold the hearings again, and I don't,
No, that's not what I said.
oh, well, you said something about having a hearing. I'm not sure what you were getting
Right.
at.
If you look at, and again, you know, the problem is, even though curing and penalties and enforcements have been sort of talked about in this venue, that it hasn't been correctly done. So the penalty statute, and I don't want to really get into this because it's about, you know, a person who's a member of a public body who knowingly and intentionally violates the provision of a subchapter. Well, I don't think there was a knowing and intentional violation. We have a new open meeting law that wasn't followed. A person who knowingly and intentionally violates the provision of the chapter on behalf of or at the behest of a public body. Well, who could that be? Might that be us who, you know, we're violating? I don't know. Anyway, it goes down because, of course, it goes on, can be guilty of a misdemeanor and shall be fined not more than $500. And then it goes on about prior to instituting an action, the Attorney General or any person aggrieved by the subchapter shall provide the public body written notice that alleges a specific violation of the chapter, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes down within 14 days after the public body acknowledges a violation, the public body shall cure the violation by, and it gives a variety of things, either ratifying or declaring as void any action taken at or resulting from a meeting, and this is one of the selections, a meeting that was not noticed in accordance with subsection 312C of this title. So what I was suggesting, and I don't even know if this is appropriate, is that it would at least be facing the issue by saying that there was no notice given and there was no recording taken per open meeting law. That was wrong, but it wasn't intentional. And so the purpose of the meeting would be to ratify the decisions that were made and to say that, you know, you understand this and you're not going to do it again. And I only bring this up because the municipal law basics thing put out by the Secretary of State says we have an affirmative duty to check all the law and relevant statutes before acting. So that's what I do, and that's what I brought up.
Okay, well, like I said, we don't have a formal complaint. I will leave it to the listers on how they would like to handle this going forward. If you said you're going to check with BLCT to see if any violation might have occurred, and then you can take appropriate action based on their guidance. So I think we've,
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do want to say we did warn the grievance hearings. We did. So that is a true statement.
I know that to be true because I helped post some of those
Yeah.
postings. I volunteered to put the posting at Dan Whitson at the library, so I know it happened. Okay, I think we have covered this much more than I thought we would. So it's time to move on. Number 7. The police department has sent us a request to expend some reserve funds. And there's 2 different requests here. One is for money to come out of the Public Safety Facility Fund and the other out of the Police Equipment Fund. I'm sure you've all read this. I see the chief is here. He was here. Yes, he's here. Does anyone have any questions for the chief on this request? Priscilla?
My only question is, I thought that if things were below $10,000, we didn't have to.
This is coming out of a reserve fund.
Oh, that's because reserve fund.
Approved by the
Okay,
board.
excuse me.
Yep,
Okay.
that's okay. All right, any other questions? I don't see any hands. So would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of one AED and one bleed kit in the amount of $3,007.60 from Fund Number 47, Public Safety Facility Fund.
All right, thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Priscilla. All right. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. I just want to note on the request for money to be spent out of Fund 21. I did notice in the finance report that we ended the year with a deficit on that account. I reached out to Brennan, who explained to me that the over expenditure was when we approved the bulletproof vest, and we're expecting a grant to come in to cover that, but it's going to cross over fiscal year. So we're going to end a year with a deficit, but then next year we'll get the reimbursement. This request is coming out of the new appropriation for fiscal year 25. So the funds will be there for this request. So having said that, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of 2 AEDs and 4 bleed kits in the amount of $3,982.40 from Fund Number 21, Police Special Equipment Fund.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia? Marcia, how do you vote?
sorry, yes.
Thank you. Roger?
Yes.
All right, and I'm a yes, so it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Chief. Okay, the next thing on our list is the Norwich Community Collaborative. And I see Jess is here. You want to come up? So we have a letter in our packet from the from Jess Phelps, who is the president of the Norwich Community Collaborative. And they are going to apply for a grant from the Northern Border Regional Commission, and they would like a letter of support from this board. And the wording for that letter is at the bottom of page 1, top of page 2. So I assume everyone has read this. Does anyone have any questions for Jess?
Is this timing good for the letter?
Yeah, you need it by August 15,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yes, timing's great.
Right.
Okay, all right. Well, seeing no questions, I would ask if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the Norwich Community Collaborative's grant request to the Northern Border Regional Commission.
Thank you. Priscilla?
I'd love to second it.
Okay. We're getting into a pattern here. Okay. All right, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
I'm a yes. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
I'll have the town manager's office reach out to you after I've had a chance to sign the letter.
We really appreciate the continued support.
Thanks for coming in.
We're happy with what you're doing, some of us. Very happy.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the town manager's report.
All right, thank you. So in your packet, you had a written report, which I imagine most people were able to look at, and I will probably skip over some of the department pieces here because nothing was terribly new and exciting. I will stop on the fire department and just mention that we actually made the transaction this morning with Deputy Sweat, myself, and representatives of the Bethel Fire Department. So engine number 2, I believe, is now sitting safely in the Bethel Fire Department, and $45,000 is sitting safely in the city's coffers. So I think that worked out well for both parties.
Great. Thank you.
And I will now, I guess, skip down to the town manager's office section here and just talk through a couple of these a little bit more. I did just want to publicly recognize that we have a new administrative assistant who's working in the town manager's office as well as for the DPW, and her name is Heidi Clausen, a Norwich resident, and she's been with us now for a couple weeks and getting her feet underneath her and starting to work with specifically with Miranda on kind of learning the ropes of setting the agendas and the packets and all of the process that goes with that, as well as other roles and duties of the position. So we're happy to have Heidi, and she seems to be fitting in very well. Some good news, the Alcott Road Bridge project that we were all aware of for several months has been completed, and our contractor Winterset did a nice job there. If anyone is traveling in that area, you're certainly welcome to pull to the side there and take a look at the finished product, which again, I think turned out really well. So we have now a new safe bridge that will be in place there, hopefully for many decades to come. And the homeowner that was temporarily relocated while that work was going on is back in there as well. So the Hemlock Road, just quickly, not a whole lot has changed here. We continue to work on a weekly basis with our engineers. We're trying to get FEMA the information that they require, which will allow us to get the funds for that project committed by FEMA, which is really the next big step that we want to see. And as I mentioned in the past, we kind of have a continual churn of kind of higher level FEMA leadership. So I think we've now gone through the last gentleman who was here for about 3 months and are moving on to the next, which is frustrating, and it's really hard to build continuity in that, but it does seem to be the FEMA model, just to kind of have these people coming in for a brief period of time and then being reassigned out.
Brendan, could I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
Are we getting inclometer readings, and have there been any changes with that?
There have from the last reading that was reported to me, there has been no change. So that's good news. That was several weeks ago, so I don't know. I think they're doing these on a regular basis, but I'm not quite sure what that regular basis is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so far, good news that nothing is dramatically shifting there as we do the planning for this. So the Moore Lane Bridge, some progress to report there. We did create, and we being Director Kaufman and myself created an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications, seeking consultants, most likely engineering consultants that would be able to work with the town on a long-term solution to the bridge issue. And that deadline for responses is August 19th. So at this point, I don't believe we've heard anything back. We have a question period that will come to an end here a couple of weeks before the deadline. We're obviously hoping that we will get a couple responses from folks that would be interested and qualified to help the town through this. And then a more timely update. So the Clean Harbors Environmental Group, who we had commissioned for the cleanup back in 2022, has finally gotten back to us with a quote and a statement of work for what they would be proposing to do. We're looking at kind of two different elements. One is basically removing of the emulsion that we are aware of as being along the two abutments at this point, and then placing what they're calling a boom, which would be, as I understand it, some more absorbent materials that would then be packed kind of into the areas that we know we're seeing the emulsion coming from at this point, usually at the upper edge of the bridge. And we're hoping that will be able to hold this emulsion in at least temporarily while we continue with the longer term planning. It will certainly remove the threat that we're seeing of emulsion actually entering into the stream below, and we're hoping I believe right now the plan is that they will be out here next week. So that would be the week of July 29th. And they have a plan of how they're going to tackle this with, the containment that they need as well. We're looking at about $12,000, possibly a little bit more than that, about 8,000 to 9,000 being the actual removal of the emulsion materials, and another 2,500 to 3,000 that's going to be the actual drumming of that, where it's contained and then taken to a qualified site for disposal. So again, I think we talked about in the past, this will be considered kind of an emergency response to the situation there. And again, unless people have any concerns they want to share tonight, I plan to sign off on the statement of work and the quote that was provided yesterday tomorrow morning, so we can make sure we have them lined up for next week.
Anyone have any questions or concerns about that? Having him go ahead and Marcia?
So are you doing it in 2 bits? Because we've got that.
No, the quote was broken down into those two different sections. One was the removal and one was kind of the disposal, but it's going to be done at one. It looks like they're going to try to do it all in one day, actually. So they're going to come up from their headquarters, which is in Bow, New Hampshire, and they're planning on working between 8 and 12 hours here on site to get it all done in one trip.
I was concerned about the ancient $10,000 rule. And so if it's 12,000 plus, do you need us to bless it?
Well, I think when we talked about this, hoping that it would have been completed a couple weeks ago when we first reached out to them, we were thinking that this would be considered kind of an emergency response, and therefore it would not fall into that kind of category we normally would have for procurement.
We also have a $25,000 limit for professional services. And so if we wanted to look at this as a professional service, because they are specialists in this field, we could treat it as professional services.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with putting it in either category. And if someone wants to make a motion to approve that, to be err on the side of caution, I'm fine with that. Or we can just go with this as an emergency. What's your pleasure? Marcia?
I think for clarity, so that there's no questions down the road, it's always, I'm going to be suggesting that later, that we have motions for stuff that we agree to, so that we always have a record. So that would be good. I just wanted to say, I think this is a good response, even though it's taken a while. I mean, there's no magic bullet for this. And I know it's another $12,000, but we're in a situation where we've got to contain this stuff while we figure out how to get rid of the whole thing. So I think you've done a good job with it.
Yeah, we have to buy time until we can come up with a real final solution. So Marcia, did you want to make a motion to approve this expense, or do you want to let?
Yeah, I mean, I would just move to confirm that the town manager is going to expend over $1,200. $1,000. Wishful thinking. For clean harbors in connection with the remediation containment of the Moore Lane Bridge emulsion.
I'm writing quickly to get this down.
Can I
Okay,
read it back?
I have that Callaway moves to confirm that the town manager is to expend $12,000 for clean harbors in connection with the remediation and containment of the Moore Lane Bridge emulsion. Did I get it right?
I think she said
Brennan has a question.
over $12,000. Because it might be a little more.
Oh, yeah.
Brennan may have a
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, we won't, it won't be $12,000 on the dot, and we're gonna have to wait till we get the final bill, but it'll be in that ballpark.
Okay, all right, so we'll say expend over 12,000, that's fine. All right, so we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Brennan, has there been any work to confirm whether or not the product or the emulsion has reached the soil, has reached the bedrock? And is there is that something that needs to be done? So what is the involvement of the spills program relating to that question?
So the involvement of the spills program is non-existent at this point, other than kind of watching the towns, react to the situation. Your question about have we done any further testing of the water or the sediment? No, we have not. I actually considered doing that after we kind of hit this delay of a couple of weeks where we just, we're waiting on Clean Harbors to get back to us. So that was actually another $4,000 or so. And I am kind of confident right now that we're going to clean this up to the point where there is not going to be anything contaminated in that stream or stream bed. And again, it is kind of a moving water body, sorry. So, we didn't find any evidence of this in the 2022 report that we got back. We certainly have seen visual evidence in the last month and so many days of sheen that is certainly, I think attributed to the emulsion coming down off of the abutment. So I'm pretty confident that there is sediment, or there is emulsion reaching the waterway at this point. And that's why we're taking the steps we are. But I didn't think it was justified to do another water sampling study at this point once we knew we were going to have it cleaned up.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you, Roger. And Brennan, any other questions? Priscilla?
It sounds as though it's about $4,000 to do a water sampling. Is that?
That's what I understood, yeah.
So it's sediment.
They don't just take one sample for $4,000. They take several and.
No, because I'm thinking if we had a sample right there by the bridge, I mean, I would love to invite any members of the board who want to go and look at the bridge abutment. It's pretty
Well,
startling.
we get pictures.
But, if there is some dilution as it goes along to see what's there at the bridge and maybe farther down where the children and the dogs like to play off the meadows, because maybe you've had this experience, people saying, can my grandkids play in the water? Can my dog play in the water? And we don't know.
Well, I think Brendan has been hounding Clean Harbors about getting here, and finally they have committed to coming next week, and he's hoping that they will get this cleaned up, and then we won't have to worry about what's in the water while we wait to hear about responses to the RFQ. Any other questions or comments? All right, Peter, I'll give you 3 minutes. Do you need to come up and introduce yourself, please?
All right, late, and it looks like I'm coming in the tail end of this conversation, but my understanding is that even though we've waited now 2 months, Clean Harbors, the company that didn't handle this last time, for 23 grand, we're now going to hire them again for how much? And when you're saying clean it up, this is a self-generating problem. So you're going to clean it up a month later in August in the heat, you're going to have the exact same problem again. So I'm not sure if you all are thinking this through, this is not a problem that is clean upable. The bridge generates petroleum chemical discharge on a daily basis. So I am concerned as a taxpayer, frankly, that you are suggesting that this is clean upable. Mary and Roger, unfortunately, know well that that's not true. They know that they were on the board when you all passed a significant amount of money, $93,000, to fix a problem that didn't even last a year and a half. So you're proposing to hire the same companies to solve a problem that is not solvable in the way that you are proposing. The only way to deal with this in a rational way is to deal with the problem itself, which is the self-generating petroleum discharging bridge. So I guess my question is why is cleaning up the current mess an answer when the current mess is going to be back again in mid-August? And I see it every day. And frankly, the discharge is disgusting, as somebody, a neighbor of mine said today. It's in the water. Brendan doesn't know, Priscilla, you don't know, I don't know what kind of harm this is doing to the environment, seeping into the soil. Is it affecting the fish that swim under that bridge? Of course it is. Absolutely. So you have to deal with the problem itself. So I don't think it's responsible, certainly not fiscally responsible. If I was running a business, I wouldn't hand tens of thousands of dollars more to the same business that didn't solve the problem the first time. So we gave you, or this town gave you all a chance to prove that you could solve this problem. You didn't. That's fine. People make mistakes. You are now about to repeat the same mistake that the board made last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask questions of the board? Can I ask questions about what the rationale?
Minutes are up.
Okay, that's good.
We allow 3 minutes. Thank you.
Understand that. Can I ask a question of the board about what your rationale is, though? I did ask that embedded in the 3 minutes.
Thank you. Marcia, go ahead.
Thank you.
I think, Roger, were you ahead of me?
I'm sorry, I didn't see Roger's hand up.
I just have a quick question, Brennan.
Right.
From what I understand, which is maybe not a lot, the possible vendors to do this work through an RFP process might be limited. You mentioned that even the current team is traveling from New Hampshire and doing work, compressing their schedule because they're from further away. So I guess my question is, do you have any guidance, certainly not from the state, but do you have any other guidance about the vendors that are available to bid on this project? Just because obviously we all want responses to the August 19th RFP. So I don't know. I'm sure Chris must know of some networks to send the RFP to. So if you can address how the town expects the response to look like when the RFP comes in, that might be helpful.
Yeah. Well, we have posted this on the Vermont Bid Board. We have it on our website, and we've sent this out to firms that we believe would be interested in this type of work or have done this in the past. So that's kind of what we've done to try to promote or solicit a response at this point. I'll let Marcia go, and then maybe I can just add a little bit to Peter's questions there.
Well, you're already talking. I'm happy to yield.
Okay. So I think there were a number of opinions and potentially misleading facts there in what Peter just said. And I recognize that Peter is a passionate stakeholder here in this, and being an abutting owner of land and a home that sits next to the bridge. And I completely understand his frustration at the time of response here, that we've again been kind of at the will of the contractor that we've tried to engage. I want to just be clear that this does not solve the problem of the emulsion that is in those decking boards and coming down. This is our short-term solution in a cleaning of the current abutments that are disgusting. I think that's a fair term. We want to address this immediately, and this is the remedy, the ability of the town to respond quickly to the current situation. The work that was done back in 2022, I don't believe met Mr. Orner's, he didn't feel it was done correctly. But I haven't heard that from a lot of others. And there were multiple contractors that were involved in that work, not just Clean Harbors. So I think, again, with a limited number of environmental cleanup firms that we have to deal with, I think it did make sense to go back to Clean Harbors and re-engage them, knowing the project as they do. As I mentioned, and maybe Peter came in after I had talked about this, the plan is not just to clean this off and then cross our fingers and hope we don't have another issue by the end of the summer. They are going to be replacing and repacking what they're calling a boom into the upper areas of that bridge where this emulsion is seeping from. And again, their belief is that that will buy us some time through the rest of the summer, through the colder season when this doesn't seem to be as prevalent, and hopefully at the point where we come out of this planning for a long-term solution, we're able to address it when we get into next spring. So that is the plan. It is not an attempt to solve a problem just by cleaning this off and hoping it goes away. There's a whole second step that we're working on as far as the long-term mitigation. And again, we don't really have an answer for that yet. That's why we have issued the RFQ. That's why we're hoping to engage with somebody that can work with the town on a long-term solution to the Moore Lane Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcia, did you want to go now?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, from my perspective and understanding, we as a board want to stop this happening. And it hasn't been easy, I don't think, to find the right solution. I know from some personal experience that Clean Harbors was certainly recommended to me for something once because of their expertise. And my expectation and understanding is that what we're headed toward is a proper solution. But in the meantime, we can't just let this keep leaking. And so even though nobody wants to spend another $12,000 for a Band-Aid, we've got to do something, and we've got to have this stuff taken away. So bad as it is, I think it's the right thing to do at the moment. And then I think what we're going to end up with in August is a really hard situation where we have to say, maybe most of us want to take down that bridge, and we're going to have to look to people and say, this is how much it's going to cost. And I don't even know what that's going to mean in terms of whether we can get a grant or anything. But certainly I want to see the thing gone, because I'm pretty sure I've been over there and looked at it a couple of times. It's not a good situation, and we want it to be gone. I do. I'm not going to speak for the board.
Thank you. I recall you saying that in 2022. So you've been a long advocate of trying to get this bridge out of there and solve the problem. Thank you. Yeah, and I see your hand is up. In keeping with our tradition, we give 3 minutes for public comment. So go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just want to point out that we're on at least the second cycle of a temporary fix, hopefully to give time for a permanent fix. And so we did this last in 2022 or whatever, and we missed the opportunity. We made a temporary fix with the diaper, and then in that period of time, we didn't do what we're doing now, the RFQ, to do a permanent fix. So that was a lost opportunity. That's in the past. So what I would ask this time, if we're doing another round of temporary fix with Clean Harbors, clean it up, stick some more rolled up diapers in the cracks, how long is the temporary fix going to last? And can we be sure this round of temporary will last long enough to get a permanent fix in place? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the answer is that previously there was no RFP or RFQ issued to get a long-term solution. We had a change of town managers, and so it just kind of got lost in the shuffle with all of the other things that needed to be dealt with. If I am not remembering that correctly, someone please correct me, but that's my recollection of the timing on this. Marcia, go ahead.
I don't think it was lost, but I think that the reports were that the diapers seemed to be working.
I see. Okay. So
I mean,
maybe
it
a
was a
decision.
long-term solution, but at that moment, it was working.
Right, but we didn't have a town manager that issued an RFQ at that point in time. And so now we have one out there and we're hoping that this time it's going to get solved. And I wanted to quickly say to Roger, I'm sorry I don't see your hand when you raise it up, but your hand, when your hand goes up, it's kind of gold colored and you are in a room with gold colored walls. And so it just kind of blends in for me. So I don't always see your hand when you put it up. Sorry. I'll try to
We'll try to spot
watch
it,
for that better.
spot it for you.
All right.
We do have a motion that we have not
We
voted
do
on.
have a motion on the table, a
And
motion to.
Roger's hand is up again.
Oh, okay. I can't see
Yeah,
it.
that's how-
gosh.
It's very hard to see. Okay, go ahead, Roger.
So Brennan, and then I guess I would say we can conclude for now. Can you just clarify what questions this RFP asks that previous efforts did not? That might be helpful.
You're muted, Brennan.
Sorry. So this is an RFQ. It's a request for qualification. So we tried to, it's on the website if you want to take a look at this. So it was issued a week and a half ago. And what we're trying to do is find a firm to work with the town. And we've tried to explain the history and the background and what it is in general terms without telling them we want you to give us a quote on a bridge deconstruction and reconstruction. So that would be, again, in an RFQ process, we would be able to engage with someone who we felt would be a good fit with us to work through the process. That's when we would actually go into the process of what are the options, what are the costs of the options, and try to build from there.
Okay, yes, I'm seeing this now. Okay, helpful.
And so,
Can I just add one more piece to this? So we are also planning to monitor the cleanup that is going to be done next week. So this is not going to be just a cleanup and then stuff some absorbent into the cracks and hope that we're good. We're going to keep an eye on this. If we're seeing that this emulsion is moving, we're going to have Clean Harbors probably come back out to deal with the, whatever removal and repacking we would have to do. I think we should be very cognizant that we do not want this emulsion reaching the waterway. I mean, it's unacceptable. And so I think we're making the right steps here to make sure that at least, again, for the short term, we can keep this out of the waterway. And again, we're saying buy some time. That's what we're doing to come up with a permanent solution here.
Brennan, what do you see as the timeline for coming up with a permanent solution? Are you looking at next spring, getting on somebody's schedule for some kind of work to be done, whether it's the removal or whatever solution is
So it's a little hard for me to give you a real timeline here. And the reason for that is, we have to engage with a consultant that would then allow us to say, this is going to take me 6 months or 3 months or 9, whatever that timing is. I can also just tell you that people are very busy right now. All of the FEMA money that's out there from last July is, these consultants are working on projects all over the state and all over the region right now. So I'd rather not give you a timeline. My hope would certainly be that by the next building cycle, we could have gotten through the planning. We could have come up with kind of what we'd like to do and be ready to do it. But I can't promise that tonight.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing is all the flooding that we've had. I'm sure people are very busy out there.
Yeah,
And
just had round 2 there for most of Vermont 2 weeks ago. So.
Okay, we do have a motion on the table and would you like me to reread the motion or are we ready to vote on it?
I think we're good.
Okay. Peter, I see your hand and
Sorry, I wanted to say, could you reread it? I was muted.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. The motion is that Callaway move to confirm that the town manager is to expend over $12,000 for Clean Harbors in connection with the remediation and containment of the Moore Lane Bridge emulsion, seconded by Mary. All right. All right, I'm going to call for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes?
Roger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Unanimous. Okay. All right, I think we need to move on with the town manager's report. I see he has some other items to cover with us.
Okay, so the next topic I had, just an update on the personnel policy rewrite. We have gotten some comments back from our legal team, and actually Miranda and I are going to be meeting again tomorrow morning to talk about some of his suggestions. And at that point, again, my thought would be that we would allow a couple weeks, maybe not a couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half for department heads to be able to take a look at this current draft and offer any comment that they might have or suggestions. At which point we could pull it back together. And at this point, the timing looks like we could have this kind of for a first look of the select board and kind of public viewing at the second meeting in August, which would be the 28th. So that's the timing we're shooting for at the moment. Just another kind of update, just to let folks know this hasn't been forgotten. The Beaver Meadow Road pedestrian improvement, we are still assuming we will have some work done on that this summer. And again, an issue I think right now of just very busy contractor who hasn't had a time to really focus on this project. But I have been through Director Kaufman, keeping this kind of as a topic of we definitely want to pursue this and get this shoulder work done this year. So that is all I have at the moment. More to come hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Just a quick note that we, as I had mentioned, we had transferred over the town of Norwich telecommunication services to avoid a vendor that had kind of unilaterally decided to increase their fees by a dramatic amount. So that took a bit of work and logistics, but at this point we have completed the transfer and things seem to be working as expected. So that's good. The hydrant rental fee topic, we had talked about this in previous meetings and it came up again at the last meeting. So we have actually gotten recontacted by a member of the Prudential Committee last week to see if we were able to hold that second meeting of a stakeholder group that had talked about it back in April. So it had been about 2.5 months since we had heard back. I guess it's a positive step that they are now at this point looking to re-engage. And unfortunately, we've hit a couple conflicts with vacation schedules. So it's looking at this point like our meeting might be in early August, if that will work. And I'm guessing maybe the second week of August is probably more realistic. So that, again, has not moved a whole lot since we really have not gotten any more, dialogue or supporting materials that we had asked for in the first meeting to kind of justify the dramatic increase there in the costs that they were looking to build the town for. All right. And then we
Just a moment, Brendan. Priscilla wanted to make a comment.
I have talked to Brennan about this, but I just thought I should say for the public, the Prudential Committee did have a meeting last night.
Monday night.
Monday night. I can't keep my days straight. Anyway, very, very recently, hoping that the town manager and the fire chief and probably the deputy fire chief, I don't know, could be there. And apparently it did not work out with any of their schedules. at all, but I went to the meeting. I'm their loyal member of the public. I live in the fire district. I'm self-appointed liaison from the select board to the fire district. And it was a long discussion. It's a very difficult issue. It's unfortunate that there has not been more collaboration yet. We hope that's about to change. I just hope we can get this fixed fast. I mean, this is going to haunt us going into our budgets for next year too.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Let me just add one more piece to this. It's occurred to me, where we are right now basically is, we've been provided a bill for monies that we had not budgeted for. So we're looking at basically a $60,000 bill for the past year, and we had budgeted $34,000 for that. And the kind of, we've been aware of this. This has kind of been ongoing discussion here for, I think, over a year and a half. And does it make sense? Again, the fire district's position seems to be that they need to cover costs, and that they need to, in order to do that with the budgets that they've, I guess, had historically, they're looking at $60,000, which was billed this year, $90,000, which is going to get billed into the next fiscal year for us, and then ultimately $120,000, which would be kind of their recurring, we need $120,000 from the town every year to operate. And again, the position of the fire department to date has been, there doesn't seem to be any justification or precedent or, other towns in the region paying anything close to that. And in fact, I think when the chief looked at this, he was thinking it was closer to $12,000 a year, so that's 10% of 120,000. So that's where we are, and it's a difficult gap to try to bridge. I'm not sure how we do that. It has occurred to me that a solution or a potential solution could be to put this onto a ballot for the voters to decide. The entire town voters would be basically asked to pick up this extra money that would go into the fire district fund. Is that something the town is willing to do? And if we did that at the November election, potentially that would guide us with the town voters' opinion when we do craft a budget for fiscal year 26, which is going to be done, through November and hopefully approved in December. So I don't know if that's a great idea or a dumb idea, but it occurred to me that this issue seems to have just been kicked down the road here. Requests have been proposed, and the town manager or the select board have not acted to say definitively yes or no. And this, I guess, would be an opportunity for the town folks that are going to be asked to foot the bill for this to be able to say yes or no. And that would be guidance that we would use, again, going into the next budget cycle. So again, I float that out there just as a suggestion. I don't know what people's thoughts would be on doing something like that.
Thank you. Marcia, go ahead.
I think that's a good question, Brennan. I wonder though, does it beg the question, we created a fire district, has it outlived its usefulness? Is there, should it be an enterprise system now, basically? Do we want to do that sort of thing? It would be a huge lift for the town, but which is worse? If we're paying $120,000 every year, would it be worth it to re-examine the need?
Roger, go ahead.
I also said last time that I didn't think that it was that if we couldn't solve this problem with a conversation and factual information, then you would solicit some help. So you would begin with mediation, and then if mediation is unsuccessful, then you have a third party make the determination. I can't imagine that if you go into any fact finding, they would prevail $120,000 for water is absurd. So I think you should request professional mediation services for real, meaningful, facilitated conversation, and then move into a fact-finding period, and then bring that to the voters, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla?
I think we're kind of leaping ahead, assuming that there's acrimony and we need mediation. I don't think we're there yet at all.
I would agree. Dan, did you want to come up and say something?
Thanks.
Please introduce yourself.
I am Dan Officer, the current chair of the Prudential Committee, and I was asked to come tonight just to express a little bit of frustration about maybe where things sit from our perspective. And I appreciate the town manager's talking about this and the background he provided of his perspective where things sit. From the Prudential Committee's perspective, this is not new news. This was communicated over 2 years ago when Michael Goodrich was at a select board meeting and had sent emails to the town, both the town manager's office as well as the select board at that time communicated that we were way off cycle for where we needed to be with our charge for infrastructure to support the fire suppression needs. Basically, it's rooted in both the fact the hydrants, which are above ground, there's a cost to maintain those, which greatly exceeds $12,000 a year in and of itself, just maintaining the appearance of the hydrants and the flow of the hydrants and how they work. But then more importantly, there's actually a whole bunch of underground infrastructure that is specifically to provide water for fire suppression needs, which is not necessary to provide drinking water. Basically, the pipes have to be a lot bigger. That's quite expensive. You know, if we had drinking water pipes everywhere, it would be far less expensive. So there's a cost to providing greater infrastructure. And for years, the fire district had not been adjusting the rates. It had just been kind of consistent, had been set long ago and not adjusted. So we decided to be friendly at the time, before my time, frankly, on the PC, and communicate that, hey, we're overdue for an adjustment to what is appropriate. What's appropriate is probably going to be a little bit of something you guys have to get used to. So we'll put you on a glide path to get there to be friendly rather than adjust it all at once. And so that was the nature of putting in place this, 3-year horizon to get where we're going, or what was communicated is where we're going then. And since then, it's pretty much been, that's what we've been billing along the schedule we've communicated. And then all of a sudden, we noticed as a fire district that the town was not budgeting for our current rate in this year's budget as they were preparing the budget. So I emailed the town manager and the fire department during the budgeting cycle and heard nothing. I basically notified them out of kindness. We'd already communicated the rate. I just said, hey, here's the rate that you guys are budgeting. Here's actually what our rate is going to be based on what we've previously communicated. And I heard nothing during that. And then the budget was set. And then from the town, which didn't match our budget as a fire district, because we have a budget as well, and we've been budgeting what we have communicated. And now we have a hole in our budget because we are not being paid. And it's a little frustrating setting the rate aside. Just that sequencing of events from the fire district perspective is a little bit frustrating. And I also find it a little frustrating that we have to be the ones to reach back out and initiate conversation here. It's basically like we're being asked to negotiate against ourselves to come up with a rate that is tolerable to the town. And it seems like we're being treated quite differently than any other vendor of service to the town would be treated in that respect. So for what it's worth, I don't think that there's a lot of acrimony. I think we're hopeful that we can kind of get to the table and come to a resolution of what is the fair, appropriate rate and document it so we don't have to have this conversation every year, 2 years, 3 years. It's just, this is kind of how it works. But it is frustrating that we had to get to this point where now the fire district's running a hole in our budget because the town didn't appropriately communicate in their budget, despite us even notifying them again. So.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Priscilla?
If I could add one other comment. When there's a hole in the fire district budget, that has to be filled by approximately 300 households. When there's a hole in the town's budget, it's how many households in town? 1,700? I don't know. It's a disproportionate burden on a small number of people for the benefit of the town.
Roger, you had a comment?
So Priscilla, I heard you described as a loyal member of the public and also the liaison. You're actually still the auditor for the fire district, is that right? The Prudential Committee, is that right?
That is correct.
Great. I'm glad that we have that on the record as well. I don't disagree with the goals, just to be clear. I just think that like you should come to the table, as it's been said, differently. So I would hope that the information that was introduced by our town's representatives was engaged, that they would similarly be offered evidence, and perhaps there was for the bill being what it is, and then have an actual professional services, if you will, for resolving it effectively, because obviously it's been going on for some time and we don't want it to become protracted, because things will inevitably be upsetting for everyone. So, and again, I think Marcia's point too, I think in the past, the attorneys have advised that the easiest way to manage this is to create a charter and fold this enterprise into it. So we should always be understanding of what these options are at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Roger. All right. If we have no further comments, I would ask Brennan to go ahead and finish with his town manager's report. I think he had one or two more items to discuss with us.
Yeah, just very quickly, I just wanted to update that we have signed a memorandum of agreement with the SAU 70, which is going to basically allow the town to reduce our annual fee this year based on inability to use some of the facilities due to the construction that was going on. So that was something that I think was mutually agreed would be fair and equitable, and that's what we're doing. And I guess that was really it, I think, for my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brennan. All right, so moving along, number 10, preparation for the August 11 informational hearing. This is for the town ballot that will be available to vote on a number of things. And we need to prepare for that meeting. Brennan and I discussed it briefly. We're going to meet here in the multi-purpose room because I don't anticipate a huge number of the public attending, but maybe I'm wrong. And I guess we're not going to get into any high-tech presentation of the one article that's on the ballot, which deals with the change in compensation for the listers. So we'll just present that. Peter has agreed to come and be our moderator that afternoon. Thank you, Peter, for doing that.
When is this planning meeting, or?
We are having an informational hearing on Sunday, August 11th.
Right, that I know.
Prior to the voting on the 13th.
Right.
So I'm just trying to, think about what we need to do to prepare for this informational hearing. And get a sense of how many board members we're going to have available that day.
I'll be there.
Okay, all right, so if the three of us are there, we'll have a quorum, and hopefully Marcia and Roger will be able to join us.
It'll be Zoom, right? It's gotta be.
It's not a regular meeting or a special meeting of the board. It's an informational hearing, and when we did the meeting in March, it was streamed on YouTube. There was no opportunity for the public at home to interact with us and ask questions.
What changed on July 1st?
Well, we can Zoom it. Brennan, did you speak with Jam about joining us that day? Do you have an answer on that?
We don't have a firm answer on that because it's a Sunday and they had another event, I guess a community-wide event where a lot of their staff were going to be engaged. They didn't or haven't yet given me a definitive yes, we can have somebody there. So I think it would probably be safer to plan on using a Zoom platform, and that would allow us to record the meeting. And if JAM lets us know that they are able to have staff available for that period of time, we could do similar to what we're doing tonight here, where we're kind of filming the room. But I think the I think the Zoom, platform is gonna adhere to any of the open meeting law issues that we're now dealing with.
Okay, all right, well, then we'll plan on Zoom. And then Lily, you had a question about whether we were going to have anything on the November ballot and wanted to introduce the deadline for that. Can you come up and fill us in on that?
So Lily Tryman, Town Clerk, can I back up to the Zoom for a minute? I need to post a warning for the informational hearing by August 1st. I'd like to do it this week though. So if Brendan, you can just send me whatever Zoom link you'd like me to post. That would be great. And I can get that warning up tomorrow.
Just to confirm that, just while we're all talking about it. So I think Pam is now aware of how to open up the Zoom meeting, and I would suggest if the select board would like, we'll just use this recurring. It's kind of an always open select board channel. So I think that would make the most sense. And it'll be the same, if that's agreeable, it'll be the same link that's on the agendas currently.
Perfect. I will use that link and post the warning.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
Okay, so the Secretary of State's office has said that local ballot questions can be placed on the general election ballot as long as the Secretary of State's office receives those questions by August 23rd. So just as a reminder, for the general election on November 5th, the state is going to be mailing a ballot to every registered voter. So every registered voter, all 3,000 some odd of them for the town of Norwich, will get that ballot, and on the front side will be the general election, and on the back side or in the next page or whatever can be the local ballot questions and the voting for the justices of the peace. So in the interest of saving us time and money, it would be delightful if you guys can give me any ballot questions you might want by August 23rd. And the state will print them for free and mail them out with the general election ballots.
Okay.
And of course, if you don't make that timeline, I'm happy to have another ballot on the side, but
I can't think of anything we would add, but
something to think about. You've got another meeting before.
yeah, we have to decide by August 14th.
There's always special meetings too.
We try to avoid those, but they do happen. All right, Roger, I see your hand is up.
So I guess I would like to discuss the what we will or will not. I mean, I think we should present something on the for the informational session. I think that would be appropriate. I mean, there's the presumptive Democratic nominee is not on the ballot, right? I believe won't be on the ballot. And so there's no people running in these special elections for the positions that we had asked the lister and the trustee. There were no submitted petitions. And so the only, if you will, I know there's lots of reasons why to vote and there's other people on the ballot, but I suspect that there might be lower turnout. So I think we should do some work in, preparing what is in our power to prepare for, which is the local question, right? Because the question is going to be if the listers need to have an hourly wage, right? So we should discuss, how we would present that to the public so they can understand that is a question.
That's why it's on the agenda tonight, Roger, to
Okay,
discuss how we're going to present that.
I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to discuss it tonight. I would like to discuss it next week, but because I don't.
We don't have a meeting next week.
I'm sorry, not next week, the 7th, the next meeting, which is the 7th. Is that correct?
14th. So it's after we vote.
Okay, so we need to figure out what we are presenting to the voters for that special meeting.
Right.
Okay, I just clarify something real quick.
Sure. Lily, coming up.
Roger, you said the presumptive Democratic nominee is not on the ballot. we're crossing the streams here. You're talking November. August is a state primary. Nothing has changed. And then the local election where we're doing a lister question and then 3 elected positions.
And we do have one person running for.
We have 1 person running for cemetery commissioner and nobody is running for trustee of public funds or lister. So those will be write-ins.
Okay.
Right. So I just clarify what I actually want people to take away from my point, with apologies for any inaccuracies, which is we need to prepare for that local question. So yes, because I had heard the suggestion that there was nothing to prepare, and
Well, it's going to be low tech. I'm going to write it out on a whiteboard or on a one of these, whatever they call them, flip pads, these scratch pads. It's not going to be anything official. I mean,
why?
Why would we do a PowerPoint for one article?
Because we're looking to provide context to the voters on an issue that we put on the ballot in the most accessible and democratic way possible.
Okay, well, if you're volunteering to do that, I would accept that offer.
Yes, what would the board, I mean, I have lots to say about this ballot question. How are we presenting it as a group?
Marcia, go ahead.
I think since it's going to be Zoom, it looks far more professional and presentable if we have a PowerPoint and everyone will be able to see it. I would be in favor of Roger crafting something, and then we have a problem because we don't know how we're going to share that information, but I'm in favor of Roger doing it.
Well, the PowerPoint, from what I would expect, would just be the wording of the article. If we want to discuss it with people, answer their questions, whatever, I don't see us trying to influence the way people think about this, just answering their questions. Marcia?
I think that unfortunately, the article is in itself confusing. Because, and it was my motion, for 2 reasons. Number one, we didn't have a choice because the voters had voted for the method of payment in the past. So we decided that they had the right to vote, actually should vote for a method of payment if it was changed. And then it says something like up to the budget or something, budget limit. And that's confusing. So I think, and if you look, if an astute person looks at what's in the packet tonight, for example, and looks at the monies that are being spent in each column in offices, I get confused about the lister's office. So I think it would be useful for people to sort of see, this is the budget, this is what the thing says, and we've got this many people in that office. One's a contract lister from another town, one's an existing lister who's also a clerk. We don't have an assessor, and we only have 2 listers, and nobody's applied to be a 3rd lister. I think it's very confusing. So I think if somebody could set it out cleanly, voters might actually appreciate it.
Well,
I mean, that's helpful.
I'm not sure that we could authorize somebody to put together a presentation that isn't put before this board and to decide whether we accept that presentation. And so if you want to hold a special meeting next week to go over this material before the 11th, then we need to establish a time to meet.
I mean, you were previously planning, just we weren't going to know what you were going to whiteboard out either. Okay, so just to be clear, the directive that I heard from Marcia is the budget, the positions as they are held and as they are vacant, and what else would be helpful in a presentation?
Well, I mean, I would put the language of the
Language of
article.
the statute or the article.
Yeah, I mean, just the facts, ma'am. So here's the way it looks. Here's the budget. Here's the article. Here's who, here are the faces.
Yeah.
Who's on first.
Would
And
you
then
want-
people can ask questions, and that's actually just factual.
Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Would you want a range of compensation? For instance, a clerk might earn a less hourly wage than an assessor.
That's not part of the article, though. The article is to change their compensation from a stipend to an hourly wage, not to exceed the amount budgeted.
Okay, so it's the actual listers. It's
Yes,
the
the
elected listers,
Yes.
their wage, okay.
Yeah.
So are we cluttering this up with describing the situation with the different people in the office and so
Yes.
forth then?
Yes, we are.
I disagree.
I'm just asking.
I would agree with Mary that this is cluttering it up and trying to maybe influence the way people think about the topic rather than allowing them the freedom to look at it, assess it, and see what questions come to their mind.
I
I want to say, I
Priscilla.
asked it as a question, not a statement, but okay.
Priscilla?
I don't, maybe this is just too simple-minded, but it seems to me that what we should do is, okay, here's what the warrant article said, and invite the listeners to be there to answer people's questions. And that way we're not trying to influence because how people vote. I mean, it's just information. And I think the listeners have given us good information, are the best ones to talk about it.
Well, we can certainly invite them and see if they're available. Roger, go ahead.
I just want to be clear. The presentation wouldn't say Cheryl Lindbergh is already receiving an hourly wage for her work as administrative clerk. Do you want to pay her a wage for her work as a lister? We wouldn't be doing that, right? Although, watch this meeting, Town of Norwich. What we would be doing is just saying, this person occupies that clerk position. They also are a lister. And the question before you is the people in that, the people as a lister will be getting an hourly wage. You owe it to the voters to talk about how the office is staffed and functioned for this question. And making you would not offer an opinion like I just did at the meeting, but you would present the facts, right?
The fact is, we have an article and people need to vote. And if they have questions, we should answer their questions as honestly and factually as we can. Marcia, go ahead.
I think the facts are in the budget. So you just, cut and paste what's in tonight's packet. Right?
Mhm.
But if you look at that, it's not entirely clear who's who or who's going to be paid this. People don't know.
Right.
It says something like assessing clerk, or I don't know what it says, but it's definitely potentially confusing. So if you just put the facts, what's in tonight's packet, that excerpt, and a staff listing, who's on first, who does what, and here's the language of the article. Now people have 3 facts that
Right.
Nobody has done anything to change. They're just facts. Then people can look at them and say, oh, well, that makes me think, how does this work? They have something to ask a question. Then have anybody who wants to be there to answer the question, they can be there. But give people facts. Don't just give them, an article that I don't think is particularly well done, and I did it.
I think we're complicating this. It's just simply the listers who are elected officials. So you presumably know whom you elect.
An employee.
They're the only ones we're talking about paying a stipend for doing a job they were elected to do.
Right, and if you recall, I suggested that we consolidate the pots of money that are in the budget, and I was overruled. So there isn't necessarily going to be an assessing clerk wage and a lister stipend allotment, it would be combined and they need to stay within the confines of the amounts that are allotted for these expenditures in their budget. So telling people, well, there's this much money for an assessing clerk and this much money for a stipend overcomplicates the situation and is even more confusing than just saying that they need to stay within their budget. And I think people will understand what it means to live within your budget. Marcia?
I think you're wrong. The budget number is large. And so people have, reasonable minds could ask, what's the budget? Is it 100 and whatever thousand? Or is it that particular line item? Or is it that line item plus this line item? It's confusing. So I'm going to make a motion. I move to allow Roger to prepare a PowerPoint with 3 simple facts. 1, the language of the article. 2, the budget as it appears in tonight's packet for the lister's office. And 3, a listing of the staff in the lister's office.
When you say the budget, I'm assuming you mean the FY25 budget, which is the year that we're in now.
That's what we've got.
I'll second.
We haven't seen any reports of the 25 budget in tonight's packet. And this is all June of 2024, which is the 12th period of fiscal year 2024. We don't have that in tonight's packet.
Then we can ask that Brennan provide the current budget that would mirror the same categories. I will find the thing, and you can all find it, but it's in here.
Mhm.
The categories always appear the same way. Whatever Brennan thinks is the current state of the budget that people would be voting on.
Okay, so let me read this back. Motion by Callaway to allow Roger to prepare a PowerPoint with 3 items. 1, the article. 2, the budget for fiscal year 25. And 3, a listing of current employees and listers.
I didn't say 25. Somebody opine what's the best thing. Maybe
I would
Brennan.
offer that as a friendly amendment that we say that it's the fiscal year 25 budget because that's the money that they will be working with. Friendly amendment.
Okay, I accept it. Roger, did you second?
I did. I'll second.
All right. And Marjorie, do you accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Also begrudgingly accept the charge of me, but nonetheless.
I think Marcia might have said list of staff and lister office. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Just how you phrase that, list of staff and lister office.
I don't know.
Well,
I just,
there are listers and there is a staff member and there's the contractor.
We'll need to know what Marcia is, clarify what Marcia meant.
I didn't mean the contractor. I meant who's a lister. I'm looking for the lister list here for the language that's in the. Where the heck is it? Oh, give me a minute.
You're looking for the motion that was passed?
Hold on. Okay, so right now we've got lister wage, 4,500. Assessing clerk wage, 27,000. Professional assessor services, 36,000. I'm assuming that the professional assessor services is now Ms. Bolio.
No.
Okay, so where is
It's
it Bolio on here?
Yeah, under contract.
Yeah, okay, she is under professional services. You're correct.
So we, if I'm looking at this, I mean, I've been on the select board for 3 or 4 years and I'm confused by this. So I can't expect people in town not to be confused by this. That's why I'd like to say listers are boom, boom. A clerk is Cheryl. I think that's Cheryl. Professional assessor is Amanda Bolio. We have a vacant assessor position, and we have a vacant lister position. That's fact.
So when you said list of staff, is that what you were talking about?
Yes,
All of those categories?
yes.
Okay. Does that need to be in the motion, or is this implicit in who's there?
Well, I'm happy to put it in the motion so that it's patently clear.
I think this discussion makes it painfully clear or patently clear. It's clear. I can refer back to this recording.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. We have further comments. Cheryl?
With the select board. I'll wait.
I don't see, Priscilla, did you want to say something?
Well, Peter's had his hand up a long
I
time.
just wanted a clarification, and I don't know anything about this, so, but is this ballot measure one put forward by the select board?
Yes.
So it seems like you're doing a conversation about things we always do routinely, which is if the select board is putting forward the ballot measure, then one of you discusses it in ways that explain it as best you can to the public.
Mhm.
It seems odd that you're necessarily voting on something you all always do, but
Well,
if this was a
Peter?
public measure, it would make sense.
What we're discussing is what will be in the presentation.
I
The
can't really
content.
hear what Peter's saying.
Peter's just wondering why we're having this discussion if this is a board initiated article. And I said that we're discussing the content of the presentation that will be made to the voters on the 11th.
I thought you were talking as if, I thought there was
Yeah.
some discussion on whether or not to do this at all.
No. Marcia, go ahead.
Just responding to Peter, we're doing this because the board had to put this on
Okay.
ballot.
Yeah.
And having to put it there, we feel an obligation to explain it.
Which is what we do generally, and so
Right.
I will be here to moderate any discussion that happens between the public and you all, and I look forward.
Great. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Peter.
it.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, Lily, I see your hand is up.
Oh.
That must be Omer, because Lily just went down the hall.
No, I'm sorry. I had to go home to put Miriam to bed. And I think you're missing a fourth thing here, which is that the listers are currently compensated by stipend, and that stipend is $1,500 a year for what I was told is 10 to 12 hours of work per week, although it looks like a lot more, which might explain why no one went in for the position of lister. So I think if you're going to be putting the facts out, I think you can't pick and choose the facts. I think that's one that needs to be included.
I mean,
Okay, thank you, Lily.
the
Point well
ultimate
taken.
fact will stay unstated, unfortunately, right?
Well, we have two
There's
listers
lots of
and we're
reasons
looking
why
for a
nobody-
third.
Lots of
Right.
reasons why nobody wants to be a lister in the town of Norwich.
Marcia, go ahead.
Actually, just one.
I think factually, all we can do are the things that we listed. It's, we can't stipulate because we don't know. We have no clue how many hours anybody's working. And therefore, that's up to the people who want this change in payment. They can answer those questions, but we, the select board, can't.
Well, I think the budget was for 20 hours a week for an assessing clerk. It was a half-time position. So I think we can talk about the number of hours per week that were anticipated to be needed, and then there are the hours that the listers would put in to earn their stipend. So it's at least 20 hours a week that we have in their budget.
Then I would hope that they would come and explain this to people.
I see Cheryl has her hand up. I'd like to call on her. Cheryl, you want to come up and make a comment?
Yes, thank you. Just would like to clarify that this discussion was to have the listers take the stipend and the clerk line item only, nothing to do with assessing, and combine those $2 amounts into one line item where each lister could come in and get an hourly rate. This is nothing to do with the professional services line item. That was never in this discussion at budget time or ever. It was to, because of the facts that a clerk position is not desirable, it's a challenging position to be in, whereas the listers know what needs to be done to do the work of the office and the software. That is why those two line items only would be put together. And then lastly, there is the plan, which we could admit to, or not admit to, but state that at some point when KRT, the assessing firm who gives us support in the office, is done with the reappraisal, there is the plan to hire a part-time assessor again in the lister's office and work with the Board of Listers on the more sophisticated pieces that KRT is helping with or that Amanda is helping with in the current use area, in reading deeds and things of that nature. So to inspire listers to join into the work that is to be done and the vote that people supported to keep the listers locally, it's a very rewarding position. And I will clearly speak to this, and I will be available at the informational meeting. So I just want to clarify in case Roger misunderstood what line items we were speaking about in any of this. I wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you. And I'll just note that if you look through the finance report that's in tonight's packet, there are several departments that are well beyond their budget. But the article that we have written says that the listers must stay within their budget. They cannot exceed it. So I think that we're placing a limitation on the listers that we don't place on any other department. But, you know, this is the way to get this done. We've agreed to it, and I look forward to seeing what Roger puts together for this.
We haven't voted on it.
I know we have to vote. Yep, I'm getting to that. I look forward to seeing what Roger puts together. And so with that, I'd like to conclude this discussion and go to the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
No.
All right. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Roger, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I am a no.
Are we going to have a special meeting to see what PowerPoint looks like next week?
That's up to the board. Do you want to have a special meeting to see what Roger puts together?
I don't think
Marcia?
it's,
You want to be surprised?
I'm not going to be surprised by facts.
I think these instructions were really clear. Like, they were so clear that to not follow them would be, it's very clear. The instructions were very specific, and to be spared of a meeting because the instructions were so specific. If I
I
may.
would appreciate receiving a copy in advance of the meeting, though. So that
I would too.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we have to send it, yeah, of course.
Well,
I mean,
maybe
send it to everybody, but
Yeah.
nobody gets to comment.
I'm sorry?
You can see it, but can't comment, was what Marcia said.
I mean, I think
Is that
what
all
is,
about?
Yes,
what-
I'm asking to see it.
Right.
I think what can be done is you send out a document as an FYI, and if anyone feels compelled to comment on, the only thing they can reply all with is, I would like to have a meeting to discuss this. And then we all vote about whether or not we have a meeting. But my vote would still be no then, because it's going to be very clear about what needs to be done.
Right. Okay, I just would appreciate seeing it well in advance of the 11th, if you would kindly send that out to us. Okay, number 11, the audit engagement letter. We have the annual audit engagement letter from Sullivan and Powers. I sat down earlier today and compared this letter with the one that was approved last year. And I did note that there was some additional language in several of the categories of this letter. There was language added to the award of federal grants category, internal controls, compliance, responsibilities of management, reporting, audit administration, and fee arrangements. The other change that I noted was that last year, the cost of the audit was $28,600. This contracted or letter of engagement is for $29,100, $500 more. So that's not a huge amount. So did anyone have any questions on this, Mary?
Yes, so it mentioned a single audit. Is that for FEMA-related items? Or are there many categories of government, is it related to government?
It's really,
We'll need it for work or what?
if you get more than $750,000 of federal monies, you have to have a single audit on those federal dollars.
I was wondering what projects it was related to.
I think it's anticipatory, but maybe Brennan can answer that.
If you don't mind, Brendan.
So I'm just trying to understand your question. What were the projects that brought
Well,
in?
I noticed that there will be a single audit. I was wondering what projects are related to that audit? If any, is it Hemlock Road, for instance?
Yeah, I might actually defer this to Barry on exactly what the costs were or the revenues coming in for last year. But yeah, I think FEMA monies that would be coming in for Hemlock would be one of those, as well as the other FEMA projects that we've committed to or already completed.
Okay.
But it's a $750,000 threshold of federal money for a project in order to require a single audit. So I'm not sure that we will have that, but I think they're saying that if this comes along during this year, then we need to be prepared to spend up to $6,000 for that single audit. So I think it's anticipatory.
I have one more question.
Sure.
At one point in the letter, it was talking about something like management override or maybe you could find it.
Page 4.
Yes.
Page 20 of the packet.
I was wondering about that. Management override of controls. I wondered what the implications are of that.
It says we have identified the following significant risks of material misstatement as part of our audit planning. Management override of controls.
So I want to know what that's.
Our audit of the financial statements does not relieve you of your responsibilities.
Would that relate to, for instance, DPW and not, keeping track of cash? Is it something like that? I just was a little red flag for me and my understanding of what we're getting into here. Anybody have any clarity on that?
I don't.
Question mark.
I just thought it was like
a red flag.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, well, it's sort of pointing at our manager. What's the deal?
Ask them before you sign.
Maybe don't sign it.
It says we have identified the following significant risks of material misstatement as part of our audit planning. Management override of controls. And then it goes on to the audit procedures and internal control.
Right. But it doesn't really explain that statement, which I think is
concerning.
Yes, to me is concerning because I don't know what it means.
Well, do you want to postpone the approval of this letter until we get an answer on that?
Unless there's some really pressing deadline, yes, I would.
Brennan, do you know that there's a pressing deadline to get this back to Sullivan and Powers?
Or also is Brennan concerned about this?
No, I'm not concerned. I think again, these are kind of cover, they're template of auditor's engagement letter that's, I imagine, sent to the towns that they're engaging. So I don't really have a whole lot of concern about some of the language that you're referencing there. I don't know that there's a pressing need to do this tonight. If we want to, I want to be clear on what question. I guess we would be going back to Sullivan and Powers and saying, what do you mean by this? So if you could just, if we want to do that, I guess just email me specifically what is the concerning language, and we can ask that question. And I guess this would have to come back in on August 14th then for answer and the taking it back up.
I don't think this language was in last year's letter, so I think Mary's right to question this. Marcia, go ahead.
It popped out to me as well, but I reasoned it out, and this is what I sort of imagine, that it probably is template because we didn't have anything about this in our audit letter. So it could mean, the way it's written, that they have identified, like we have identified falling meteors as a problem for towns. So we have identified management override of controls as a problem. And then, it doesn't relieve you of your responsibility not to do management overrides of controls. Since we didn't have this mentioned before, I don't think that an engagement letter is where they would say you've had a management override of controls, which is a risk assessment. So I guess that's the question that I would suggest is asked. Is this simply template language, or was this something specific to us?
Right.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that maybe we should postpone this to August 14, and in the interim, Brennan can reach out to Sullivan and Powers and get an answer to that question. Are there any other questions that he should raise with them? Marcia?
I don't have any other questions, but I'm also not uncomfortable with signing this letter because even if it means you didn't mention it before, but guess what? We've now discovered that we think that you had a management override of controls. It's not going to change our ultimate decision, I think, to sign the letter. So I think it would be nice to have an answer, but I'd be happy to sign it now.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Cheryl has a question.
Did you want to come up?
Just Cheryl Lindbergh, I do see that the letter is written to the select board. And so with your being the chair, would have thought with this kind of a question, you might be the one reaching out to get clarification since you're the representative of the board. And that's who the letter is written to.
All right, well, I can do that, or we can designate Brennan as our representative to do it.
So just so I am reasoning this out. So Marcia, you are suggesting that this is a statement of what could be almost like a risk to the audit. In other words, if there was some action that a town manager took to override internal controls that could affect an audit, is that what you're saying?
Yes, basically.
Okay, so it's just, and there's a lot of risk avoidance language in this, of course, because they kind of can take snapshots of things. They cannot thoroughly analyze the entire budget. They kind of go in and do samples and so forth. So I think on that basis, I would probably sign it tonight, but it did stand out to me as quite an inflammatory way of expressing the risk.
And if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
Brennan is the town manager, and I think he should be signing this letter.
Well, last year we did authorize him to sign as our representative, but this letter does come to the select board. And we can certainly authorize him to sign on our behalf, which is what we did last year. And I believe that's the way I wrote up the motion. Cheryl, go ahead.
So from my past experience in accounting and auditing, the letter goes to the governing body because the audit work is done on the town work that's being done. So to keep independence of what you're asking to have done and the review of those performing those duties, you have that separation, which is why the audit report comes back to you as a board. So it does
It's part of our oversight duties.
Yes, and if there was an audit committee of our town, that would be the group that could also, look at an audit report and
Right.
keep it at that level.
So what you're saying is the select board hires the auditor to oversee the work of the town employees.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to.
Okay, thank you. All right, Marcia?
Well, again, I disagree. We hire the town manager to do our business, and when things had to be signed after the audit was submitted for the last 2 years, it went to the town manager. The select board chair did not do that. So I think that's where I would go. So if I may, to move this along, I move to authorize the town manager to execute an engagement letter with auditors Sullivan, Powers and Co. for the fiscal year 2024 audit.
Second.
Thank you. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
I don't know. I guess yes.
Okay. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Roger, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. All right. The next item is the change in financial reports. We have a rather detailed memo from Brennan, or to Brennan from Barry Rosalinda, who's still on the call. Brennan?
Sorry, I was waving, trying to get your attention there before you moved on. I just want to be clear. Is there still a question that the select board is looking to have resolved around the language that was pointed out that I should?
I think that would be prudent, yes. I think
Okay.
the board would love to have a little clarification on that one point.
Okay, I guess my question was, if the answer is, yeah, this is just the template language that's gone into every other town's engagement letter, I guess I can just tell you that, but I wasn't sure how detailed I needed to go. And I was actually waving my hand before we moved off of the question about the PowerPoint, but we moved through it and I didn't get recognized.
Oh.
So I want to make sure Roger, it sounds like, is tasked with putting this together. There was discussion about budget numbers that were going to be provided to Roger. Do you need me to do that, Roger, or do you have those numbers already via the budget? I guess I just want to make sure what I need to do in the next day or two before I leave.
I would be happy to put them together and then have you or your staff verify them, so that way we're all have the same understanding of what a fact is.
And that is all well and good, although as people are aware, I am on vacation next week. So I'm not going to be available to help next week. It would have to be really in the next day or two, or depending on when this gets put together, the following week.
It's in the town report. I'm sure Roger will be able to find it and put it in his PowerPoint. And if you have a problem, Roger, I'm happy to help.
So could Miranda, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's fine. I just, again, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something in the next 2 days.
Are you on vacation, Brennan?
I'm going on a vacation, Roger.
Good.
I'm gonna turn off my laptop as well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
You have a motion for you? No, I'm kidding.
All right, so we're on number 12, change of financial reporting format. And this is a very detailed memo from Barry outlining the potential changes. I think this is a good change. I've been wanting reports out of NEMRIC for a long time. And I have said that whenever we take information out of one software package and put it into a workbook or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever name you want to put on it, you have the potential for errors. And I noticed that in the report that we have tonight for the 12-month finance report, that the column, well, it says at the top, this is the June 30, 2024 unaudited expenditure detail. But then if you look at the column that's second from the right, it says current month, May 31 of 2024, which just means that it was missed, that should have been changed to June 30 on all of these columns. So it just points out my concern about being able to catch all of those things when you move information from one software package to another. So having said that, does anyone have any questions about this information?
Yeah, I'm very confused about this, and it also comes out mouse type when I print it. Maybe I have this wrong. I thought that there was essentially a subtle recommendation to switch away from using NEMRIC.
No, we've been using spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets for these reports that come to us. And the proposal is that we switch to NEMRIC, but there will be some changes in the information, the way it's presented to us.
I thought we were using NEMRIC all along anyway.
We use NEMRIC for inputting all of the data, but then that data is exported out of NEMRIC and into these spreadsheets. And it lends itself to errors.
Well, yeah.
Human error. And it's not intentional, it just happens. So I have no problem with switching to NEMRIC. Maybe we do it on a trial basis and see what happens, see if people like the change. Marcia?
As you have heard me say before, I did 25 years of data reporting and for a big company. And I hate canned reports. There is so much better information that you can do with sophistication in a spreadsheet. Having said that, as far as I'm concerned, this is about Barry's time and what Barry believes is the best format. I don't like the amount of zeros that I see in these cans, but, and I don't like that there isn't the year comparisons, but I trust that we'll be able to request yearly comparisons when we get to budget season. And if there's anything that we can do to get rid of these columns with nothing but zeros in them, that would be great. I know that sometimes that's just a function of how people initially started putting data into a database. But basically, I say I can live with it. It's up to Barry.
Well, I do know that you can suppress the zero reports. You don't have to print every account that has a zero. So it's just a matter of how you structure the report that you request from the software.
Yeah, it's the columns that I'm concerned about that have zeros.
Well, there was at one point that we didn't even have the budget input in the columns of the spreadsheet. And we were looking at numbers, talking about what had been expended for the month or the year to date, and we didn't even know how it compared to the budget because the budget hadn't been put into the spreadsheet. So hopefully the budget will be put into NEMRIC and we will be able to get those reports so that we can see how we're stacking up against the expenditures on a year-to-date basis. But again, it is about Barry's time, and there's a lot of extra time spent on exporting this data and putting it into workbooks, which is the way it's been described. And I would like to see us honor her request and give it a try. Maybe we won't like it, maybe we'll love it, but we won't know if we don't try. So
then I have if I may, a question.
Sure, go ahead.
The potential motion says that someone would move to approve the new finance report as proposed, or new finance. Why doesn't it say just to have the finance reports done in NEMRIC? Because this wasn't clear to me at all.
Okay. Well, I understood it, so I didn't realize that it would be confusing to somebody else, sorry. And we can change that motion. You can make it however you like. If you want to say that you want to approve the finance reports being generated in NEMRIC.
That sounds good. And that wouldn't be new, would it? Is that a new format?
Well, it's a new format if we stop using the workbooks and go strictly to NEMRIC. So you want to move to approve the finance report generated in NEMRIC?
Yeah. That, to me, at least that I'm clear on what I'm voting on.
Okay,
And I'm willing to move that if you'd like, if you're ready for a motion.
all right, thank you. Is there a second? Oh, Marcia, go ahead.
I'd sort of like to hear from Barry if that captures what she's asking for.
Certainly, go ahead, Barry.
So, I mean, I can do, I can do it either way. As Pam said, I like not to have the risk of mistakes, and the more you export and import, the more likelihood that is. It does cause me to spend a lot more time because I have to go through everything line item by line item to make sure that it did export correctly, because it doesn't always. And this past month, the spreadsheet actually broke, which often happens with Excel. So it was a little bit more challenging to get the information out there. So that's just kind of the mechanics of it. But I also don't want to produce a report that doesn't work for you. So, I'm appreciative that you want to give it a try. But I would also encourage you to be very vocal about there's a piece I'd like to have, like Marcia mentioning she doesn't want to see the zeros. Well, we can suppress the zeros. So I think it should be a work in progress so that everyone's happy. I love not having to spend the extra time doing it because I can definitely use that elsewhere. But if I'm producing something that doesn't help you, then that also doesn't make sense. So, I think it just needs to be an honest conversation.
All right, great. I appreciate that. And I agree that your time is better spent, especially now that we're entering audit season. And I'm sure you'll have plenty of things to do to work on getting that ready. So the motion is to approve the finance report being generated in NEMRIC by the finance director. Is that your understanding of what you have proposed here tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to vote and approve a procedure of the town's finance office? Like, I'm confused.
Well, I think Barry would feel better if this was something that she understood that was the way the select board would like this to move forward. We can make it a motion. We can just say, yeah, do it. And we'll let you know if we're happy with it.
I think it's better as a motion. Because
Okay.
as Marcia has been saying, it reveals our intentions.
Okay. All right. So we do have a motion. I don't have a second yet. Would someone like to second?
I'll second. Oop, Marcia got it, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Okay. Any other discussion or questions, comments? If not, Mary, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes?
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you, Barry, for putting this together, and we look forward to the next report so that we can see what NEMRIC can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When is the state revolving it out the door? Remember?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What?
Okay, it's a software that's being replaced, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, number 13, subcommittee appointments. We don't have the list of names this evening to approve, and we don't have anyone here. I of the understanding that some subcommittee members at least wanted to be present when we cast our votes. But Marcia, you wanted to have this on to discuss process.
Right.
So what did you want to share with us?
I wanted to share that basically, since we're on notice, we need to start moving on this. And that basically our most pressing task is to appoint those existing subcommittees so that the select board authorizes the appointments. These are pre-existing appointments. I proposed in my memo of July 3rd that we have 3 tasks which we can address in order and accomplish over a number of regular select board meetings. The first and most important one is, I think, we send an email to groups with existing subcommittees that need to be appointed by the select board and forward subcommittee request form for them to just fill out and return to us. So in other words, these are the people on X subcommittee, they're who we want. A draft email is in my memo. Then we schedule those appointments to be made in accordance with the committee requests in one fell swoop at the next select board meeting. Done. Second, we send an email to all the groups, commissions, boards, committees, asking for up-to-date corrections, understandings of their charge, and to confirm all of their existing members and terms. Again, I wrote a draft email in my memo of July 3rd. Then we schedule 1 or more groups for review in regular select board meetings so that we can review the purpose, the charge, the need for the group, and make any amendments that we think are necessary, discharge groups that don't exist any longer or are no longer required, create new ones if they're needed. And third, we review the existing select board policy governing reporting, that's the title of the thing, that already exists so that it becomes an effective tool after we presumably amend it for regular communication with all of our appointed groups. So for tonight, I'm simply suggesting that someone make a motion to send an email that's in that July 3rd memorandum I sent to everyone. It was in the last packet. To groups with existing subcommittees that need to be appointed by the select board, and to forward them the subcommittee request form to be completed by that committee and returned to us. And then we, God bless them, at the next select board meeting. And they're appointed. So it's fairly simple and straightforward. I'm happy to send the email. Anybody can send the email. It's drafted. There's a form that's already drafted. Then we can see how that works and take the second step later.
Okay, we have several subcommittees that are comprised of just members of the committee that have been appointed, such as the Trails Committee has 3 Conservation Commission members. The Milk Fry Nature Area has 3 Conservation Commission members. So are we asking these people to reapply to be part of a subcommittee of another committee that is only comprised of people who've already been appointed by this board?
Well, I'm referring you now to Attorney Fletcher's 3-page letter. And he said, the legislature delegated the select board the authority to create, quote, advisory commissions and committees. Think subcommittees. To advise the planning commission. While the statute provides, and I'm omitting the statute for ease of reading, while the statute provides the planning commission with the authority to perform in such other acts and functions as it may deem necessary or appropriate to fulfill the duties of or obligations imposed by that title, the delegation to the select board of specific authority to create advisory commissions and committees precludes an argument that the planning commission may do so even under its general authority to perform acts or functions. Blah, blah, blah. And then, hold on. Hold on. Just 1 second.
I think a simple yes or no would suffice for me. Are we going to ask them to apply for these subcommittees and be appointed by this board to the Trails Subcommittee or make it the Trails Committee? Are we going to make it the Milk Fry Nature Area Committee? So
The answer is yes, and the reason is lawyers don't say just yes or no. The legislature has vested the select board with the authority to appoint members. And then basically it begs the question, he says it contravenes the deep-rooted principle of the law that the delegation of power from the sovereign cannot without permission recommit to another agent or agency the trust imposed upon its judgment. So basically we can't delegate our authority that we were given to create bodies that advise other bodies. So all we're doing is saying, you guys wanted this, you've got it, we're going to bless it. Then going forward, if, Committee B says, or Commission B says, we want to have a subcommittee to investigate the moon, then they come to the select board, and that's a way of us saying, okay, that's within your charge. Now we know what you're doing. And we're aware, that investigating the moon might cost some money and we might want a budget for that. Or that's way out of the scope of what you're doing. And therefore, why do you want to do this? But basically it increases transparency in our town, and it is consistent with Dylan's rule with the grant of authority given to select boards.
okay, so I have heard from the Trails Subcommittee, the Milk Fry Nature Area Subcommittee, and the Emerald Ash Borer Group. I have a list of the people that are currently serving. I am still waiting to hear from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. I am happy to convey to them that they need to fill out this form. And we can have all of this ready for the packet for the next meeting on August 14th. And I don't see a need to overcomplicate this. We'll just get it done. I see Jan's hand up. Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to clarify because we've added something here. When we were talking about this before, it was clear that a subcommittee made up of only members of the Planning Commission, a subgroup of members, such as the Solar Siting Subcommittee, which is only 3 members of the Planning Commission doing a side job for that group, was not included in this requirement. It was only a discussion about members being appointed, new members being appointed that weren't Planning Commission members. Planning Commission members have already been appointed by the Select Board. So I find it an expansion of the conversation we had over the past few weeks that didn't get resolved yet. But to say that the Planning Commission cannot have a subgroup of its own appointed members, I find a new addition to this, and quite frankly, a real stretch. It seems to me that then the Select Board is overseeing every small detail that the Planning Commission, which I might add is a statutorily created group, that's a real stretch. And I'm speaking personally now, but I'm quite sure the Planning Commission will want to talk about that.
Thank you. Marcia?
When I posed the question to council, that wasn't part of my question. Council's answer came back and I read it over 1,000,000 times. So I think that if you have a problem with that, council's the one to ask the question of it. Yes, there are statutorily created committees and they can be disbanded by the select board. No matter what you think, no matter how I feel personally, there are legislatively given powers to a select board, which is why it matters who sits on the select board. And people need to think about that when they're voting. So I'm not going to argue with you. It wasn't what I had initially thought, but that's what I read in his letter. So if we want to go back and ask him, is that what it really means? I wouldn't have a problem with it. But for the moment, what I am very concerned about getting done as an emergent situation is the ones that were the people who were appointed by a committee and not by the select board. If we can get that resolved, meanwhile, simultaneously, if everybody wants to go back to council and ask the question, that's great.
Well, the Affordable Housing Committee has been in existence for what, 30 years?
Yeah.
And
1997 or something.
yeah, so it's been 27, 28 years, whatever. And so now this is cropping up as a problem, and I don't disagree that it's something that we should probably attend to, but I don't see it as an emergency. I might be wrong. If I have to agree with Jan that if a committee decides that they want to break out a small group of their committee to work on a specific task, I see the select board getting involved in that is being overly intrusive. Marcia?
Well, again, I have to say, it's not what you think. It's not what I think. It's what the law says. So we want to know what the law says.
We have a legal.
And the Affordable Housing Subcommittee is now a subcommittee. I understand that before I was awake, it was its own committee. That I think might be something that maybe people want to talk about it. But at the moment, that group has one person on it who also sits on the overarching committee. And the rest of them were appointed by that committee. So that's what we need to get fixed. And because it's not lawful appointments, not allowed by statute, we need to fix that. And that does come to the level of, call it whatever you want, we need to hurry up and do it. And the reason, they're out there doing stuff and they don't have a valid appointment by law. So, you know, I'm impressed with their energy and the things that they're doing, but I'm reading their minutes and I'm thinking, yikes, they're still not appointed by law. So let's get that fixed.
Okay, well, I will continue to work with these groups and get the list pulled together, get them to fill out their application forms and have them ready for, I guess we need to have them here by August 8th at noon for the packet for the 14th. So I will continue to pursue that. Marcia?
So Pam, just in the future, you should make sure that you've got authority from the board for doing things because nobody knew who was going to do that. We didn't talk about the procedure. And it's great if everybody wants to do it, but you can't do things without the board saying it's okay.
These people were, well, first of all, Brennan asked me to notify them that they weren't going to be on the agenda for tonight, which I did. And then
Okay,
they started
that's
asking me.
fine. Enough said.
And they started asking me, what did we need for the meeting? So I answered the questions and they started sending me information. Okay, so with the board's understanding that I will continue to pursue this and get this pulled together for the 14th.
Roger.
Can we go back? I don't understand why a 3-slide presentation where the facts have been clearly directed to me needs to have approval of the group, but yet an email explaining a convoluted legal opinion does not get to be previewed by this group, right? Like, so I think, you know, this is ultimately public service when people volunteer on a committee. And I think like if there is something about reappointing to it, you should explain to them in a way that is generous and recognizes that it's additional labor. So like when you say you're going to reach out, like, yes, we definitely need someone to reach out, but like, I'm particularly invested in how that's communicated, particularly since you seemed to be disagreeing with the facts of law in this meeting. So like, can we just like get like write a letter, make sure it's like clear and legible, dispatch it to the group, and then take your time with it. Maybe explain it at a meeting and then make these appointments. Because if you're asking people to perform a lot of labor and they'll just go do something else with their time, they'll form a nonprofit, right? And try to affect change that way rather than working with their government.
Roger, I didn't think that we should reach out to these people. I'm asking for clarification. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if that's what Marcia's interpretation of the requirement is, that we appoint the Trails Subcommittee to, even though they're all Conservation Commission members, and we appoint the Milk Fry Group, we could do that. I'm not fighting that. I'm just trying to get clarification. I don't understand why it's required, but she says it is. Okay, I accept that.
No, you misunderstand.
That's not what I was saying. If I make clear, can I clarify what I was saying? I was just
Marcia said there was a July 3rd memo to us, and you said you didn't understand that there was a clear.
What I'm ultimately saying is that that someone should take an action, someone should make a motion, right, to direct someone to write a letter explaining both like the contents of both Marcia's memo and the legal advice to affected parties, right? So you explain to people like what we have to do, how we're going to make it right. It could be simple, but I'm just saying like that's the action we need to take, and we should just do it, right? There needs to be a public facing version of all of these overly legalistic memos.
Right. And the reason that it wasn't on the agenda tonight for those appointments, because all of this work had not been done. We weren't ready.
Okay.
Marcia?
The memo has the language. It's very short, sweet. As you will know from the June 26th Select Board meeting, Town Council has clarified the limits of municipal powers and functions. To that end, and understanding that certain subcommittees have already been formed to assist your commission, the Select Board has scheduled a special meeting on blank to appoint requested existing subcommittees. A byproduct of this process will be increased communication, coordination, and transparency about the work of our town, all to the benefit of our community. Please use the enclosed form to provide the information about your commission and each subcommittee. Completed forms should be returned to the town manager's office for inclusion in the blank Select Board packet. So, just to clarify, that was intended to be a very simple message, friendly and factual to people who need these subcommittees and want them. Okay. Now, to Jan's point, I've read that letter a gazillion times. It seems to me that it refers to all subcommittees. It was not my original question. And I think it's reasonable to ask Bob Fletcher if that's the right reading. That's not going to take any time at all. And everybody will be happy, and we'll have to, as always, we have to comply with the law, whether we like it or we don't. So I think what you're saying is we should know what somebody's sending out before they send it out. That's why I put it in that memo. And what I was saying to Pam was she overstepped by sending out something before talking to the board, because we hadn't even talked about process yet. It was in my memo.
Right.
I think we're getting a little too bogged down in this.
Right.
So let's just get it straightened out and
I'm looking for Marcia's memo dated the July 3rd, and I'm not finding it.
It was in the packet for the time before last.
So would it make more sense for Marcia to pull it out and Marcia to send it if we agree on the language of it?
I think that was the one that said that we were going to do this on July 17th. Is that the one you're referring to?
Right. It was highlighted in black because I had no idea. I just put in a date because that was in the future.
Okay. Well, what would the board like to do?
So I'll make a motion. So I think it's fine for Pam to do it as chair, as a representative. We just need to all agree on it via motion. So my move to authorize Pam Smith as chair of the select board to send a letter to affected parties that was drafted in Marcia Calloway's July 3rd memo.
Friendly amendment?
Sure.
Do we want to limit it right now to the subcommittees that include people who were not appointed by the select board initially?
I have no idea how you will factually make that determination.
I've done it already. It's pretty simple.
I mean, are we?
I just looked at the list of people.
Yeah, are you certain about who animates who? Like
That's why we would send it out friendly memos to people to say, hey, this is what we think you have.
I accept your amendment.
Could you read it again or say it again? Your motion?
No, I can't. I will try. I move to have Pam. I move to authorize Pam Smith as select board chair to issue an email to affected parties in this based on the July 3rd draft in Marcia Calloway's memo.
Okay.
And then that's mine. And then Marcia can explain to her amendment, which I will accept.
To existing subcommittees.
So
that
rather than
need-
affected
that
parties.
need to be appointed by the select board. Or you could say that haven't been appointed by the select board. Committee members that have not been selected. But the thing is, what I intended by this was not that we'd be reaching out to the people who are on these committees, but reaching out to the mothership, right?
That is who I was
Right.
corresponding with, Jan and Craig Lane.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna rescind my motion. And then I'm gonna let someone else make another motion. How's that? So I'm gonna rescind my
Confusing.
because yeah, exactly. The motion is confusing, so I'm going to rescind it and then we can begin again. How's that? So Marcia, would you like to make the motion? I mean, if Pam, sorry. It sounds like Marcia should make the motion, Pam. I don't know if you agree.
I have no preference. I see Jan's hand is up. I'd like to hear what Jan has to say while Marcia's crafting her motion. Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, just simple statement. I would agree with Marcia. I would prefer to have a specific legal answer to the question, do subcommittees that are created completely of existing members, say, of the Planning Commission? So specific example, the Solar Siting Subcommittee has 3 members. They are all previously appointed standing members of the Planning Commission. Does that subcommittee need any select board involvement to be legal? I would ask for a legal opinion on just that question. Thank you.
I mean, the answer is yes, but like we can use town resources.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I volunteer to send that question to Brennan so he can send it to Bob.
Okay, and
Can you make a motion, Marcia?
but we don't know if it'll be back in.
I move to direct the chair to write to the Conservation Commission and the Planning Commission with regard to existing subcommittees they have created with appointed with individuals not appointed by the select board.
Do you think, Marcia and everyone else, that we should get this answer to this legal question before we begin half a process? We might get an answer that necessitates a wider message, and then we look, sort of incompetent a little bit, right? So maybe we should wait. If the board agrees that that question is worth answering, then we should wait.
If I may.
Sure, go ahead.
I think that because we've got two committees that have appointed people that clearly were never appointed by the select board. I think we need to do that first. And that's why I had suggested a 3-step process. So before we go to step 2, I think we can get the answer to the question Jan has posed, and then we can proceed. And we'll have had time to have another meeting about this.
Okay, I'll second your motion.
Okay, just so that I'm clear, you're specifically talking about the Emerald Ash Borer Group and the Affordable Housing Subcommittee?
No.
Well, what is the second group beyond the Affordable Housing Subcommittee that has non-appointed members?
I don't have that in front of me at the moment. I can look it up and send it to you.
Well, I reached out to Craig and to Jan, and we have the Trail Subcommittee, 3 commission members on that. We have the
That's
Milk
the
Fry
one I was
Nature
thinking
Area.
of.
We have, well, it's Craig Lane, Chris Rimmer, and Cody Williams, all appointed by this board.
Okay, so
Milt Fry, Chris Rimmer, Craig Lane, and Linwood Andrews, all appointed by this board. The only 2 that I see that might be an issue with non-appointed members is the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group that has 4 Conservation Commission members and 4 other people that are active but not appointed, and then the Affordable Housing Subcommittee.
So the way I drafted the email, it doesn't list specifics. Because when you're asking for information, you don't want to tell people what answer you're looking for. We don't necessarily know everything. So what we can do is just say, because we know that there are 2 appointed committees who have subcommittees that we think have members not appointed by the select board, but they may have more. At one point, Jan had maybe 4, now he doesn't. So rather than try and guess, oh, we think this is what you've got, just send the message as drafted, which says, we believe you've got some appointed committees, subcommittee members, and so we need to fix that and let them tell you what they've got. And that's why the form is written the way it is, to elicit the information. You may learn something.
Okay, so I guess my question is, for the 14th, should we focus on the Emerald Ash Borer Group and the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, because we know those 2 have non-appointed members, and then maybe on the 28th, we can work on the other committees that are composed of committee members, but they've formed a subcommittee, and divide this up so that we're not dealing with all of it all at once. And gives us a little more time to get an answer to that question that Jan has.
Did you hear I started this whole conversation with 3 steps, and then I repeated the 3 steps. So what we're doing to begin with, as I understand it, is just curing a problem with 2 committees. Second step will be taken once we have the answer from Bob Fletcher. So you've got it now, I think. That's what we've been talking about.
I'm just trying to clarify the timeline. We'll work with the first 2 on the 14th and hopefully resolve the question of the others on the 28th.
So you're going fishing, and when you get your fish, you will then put them on the agenda, because then you'll know what you've got to talk about.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. If there's no further discussion, I will ask for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
I abstain.
Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes?
And Roger, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, I will get that out. I will find Marcia's memo and I will get it out to the two chairs, Jan and Greg. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the AP warrants. We have two in the packet tonight.
Do we have them physically with us?
Yes.
So we could,
No,
no?
Brennan suggested that they be sent out for electronic signatures.
Okay.
So we just need to approve them and then the finance office will distribute them for electronic signatures tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first one is warrant number 1148. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1148 in the amount of $67,167.94 to be paid from the general fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. If there are no questions or comments, I'll call for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, and one more warrant, which is the one for the Alcott Road Bridge.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1144 in the amount of $58,000 to be paid from fund number 41 DPW Bridge Fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. All right, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. The next item is approval of the June 26 minutes. Would someone like to make a motion? Or is there discussion or comments before we do that? Marcia?
So I also wrote a memo on July 3rd. And that I believe was in both packets for the last time and this time. And I have requested correction of language in item 5 and in item 12, because it did not capture what I actually said. And I would like to make a motion that this.
Past discussions have said that we don't make those kind of corrections, just because your recollection of what you said and what was captured doesn't make the minutes incorrect.
Well, actually,
so-
Pam, this really is incorrect, because it says Callaway said she was in favor of increasing the fiscal year budget for this line item. However, when the fiscal year budget was approved to go to the voters, the increased funding was not included. Don't really think that's what I said, either at the time or in the meeting. So
I went back and listened to the recording.
Yep. Please do. I move that the select board.
I did.
Statutory description of minutes found at 1 VSA 312B1.
I have it right here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Where are we on finding a minute taker?
That's a good question. I'm hoping Brennan has a good answer. Because, we're volunteering to do this work. It's unpaid. And to be criticized is a little demoralizing. And so It would be good if we could find somebody who is a third party who could take these minutes,
They just.
because I can unvolunteer.
Yeah, it's not about that. It's just that they're uneven in tone. They're supposed to have, like, I don't necessarily think they need to be, there's such a thing as a neutral voice, but there needs to be a consistent voice. So that way, you know that every meeting is represented the same way, I think. So my question is just, where are we? What do we need to set that as an agenda item to figure out a way to recruit that position?
Renee, go ahead.
So, where we are with this, I think we've had this conversation a dozen times, half a dozen times, right? So we have the meeting minutes, which can be as simple as recording the motions that are made by the select board. And then we have the alternative of that, which is kind of creating a narrative around the discussion and trying to quote people's intentions or specific words, which doesn't seem to work because we always come back to, well, I don't think I said that, or that was not the way I intended that. I mean, I'm looking at this as well under some of the town manager reports, and there are, personal assumptions here, or defining what is right, what is reasonable. I'm reading here related to the lister's request. Listers and department head meetings seems like a reasonable request to keep everyone informed. So that is not anything I think anyone said. It's kind of an opinion, and it's in the minutes, which is kind of creating a narrative, which I think we could resolve completely by going again to a recording of the minutes, which if anybody really wants to watch this in detail, they can go back and find out what was said specifically. And the minutes themselves are just the highlights of the motions that are made. But we don't seem to be able to do that. So, we can hire, we've, even before I got here, I think we were in the same conundrum, right? We had a staff member who took the minutes for a long period of time, who then said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And we looked to find, are there people out there that will transcribe the minutes of a meeting? And I think the answer was yes. They might live in California or Hawaii, and they will take the minutes that we send to them, and they'll try to transcribe them into words. And so we could do that, but I don't know that serves a purpose, because we already have a recording that says verbatim what people have done. So I appreciate Mary and Pam, who have stepped in here, and Marcia before that, when she was the chair of the board, who took this on as an additional duty as they were, members of this committee of the select board, and were taking the minutes as well. But I also agree that there is an unbalanced nature to the narrative of what is in the minutes. And if we could just all decide minutes are going to be simple and this is what they will be, I think it would also make the minute taking a lot easier as well, because then you're not trying to record intentions or specific phrases being made. So that'd be my thought. The answer, the simple question is no, we don't have anybody that wants to take these minutes. These are 3.5, 4-hour meetings, and they're difficult, and it's not an appealing job, I don't think. And the other pieces, we had said $25 an hour was kind of what we pay a minute taker. We could talk about, do we want to say it's $30 or $35 an hour? Would that attract someone that ordinarily wouldn't do it for a 25? Possibly. We haven't tried that. We could. I guess I'll stop talking and turn it back over to the board here. But those would be my thoughts.
Should I get paid as the minute taker? And
Excuse me, Roger.
Wouldn't that be a fascinating thing?
Excuse me, Roger. Priscilla has her hand up.
Let's see.
Priscilla, go ahead.
I think we have some absurd extremes here, that you either listen to the whole tape or make a transcript of it, or only to the motions. I think we are much better served by a minute taker who is not a member of the board, both because then no one can accuse this person of any kind of personal whatever, and that person is not trying to participate in the meeting at the same time as that person is trying to take the notes. I am not aware that we have been advertising or making it known that we want a minute taker, and that would be a good first step. I did mention this position to a friend on the sidewalk not too long ago who thought it might be kind of interesting on account of the pay, but wasn't sure about pursuing it. I think step one would be to advertise, put it on the listserv, put it on the website. I don't know, the fire district's trying to hire an administrator. They got a little sandwich board out there saying ISO admin, I mean, the minute taker gets paid a whole lot more than any one of us on the board. That's a, big start right there. And so I just think, let's just make an effort to find a minute taker. I don't think we've made an effort.
I don't think we have either. I can't remember when the last advertisement went out.
I beg to differ. We tried, Brennan can tell us, but we tried. And it's been asked and answered. It just didn't happen. I think, I don't know what the goal here is by board members, but the goal of under the statute is to just get the essence of the meeting. All members of the public body present, active members, participants in the meeting, not just active participants. Motions, proposals, resolutions made, offered, considered, and the disposition of same, here's the motion, it was approved, it was not approved, here's how they voted. Results of votes, that's all we need. And when I was doing it that way, it was quick. It was accurate. Everybody agreed. We didn't have arguments about who said what or what member of the public or another office, got their perspective in there. If anybody wants to listen, they can listen to these recordings, which now have to be kept for 30 days.
Right.
And I'm, other than that, I would suggest there is a function in Zoom where we can print the entire recording. Fine, print the entire recording and make that our minutes. But it'll be as useless as what what we're running in circles now. So I reiterate, I move that we just follow the statutory description of minutes. We have a motion sheet every single time. All you have to do is fill out the motion sheet and you got your minutes.
We've also, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
We've wasted so much airtime in this meeting, crafting unnecessary motions, in my opinion, for the sake of the record, right? So just, if you want more minutes, create more actions and you'll get more minutes, but then there'll be no debating what the factual actions were, right? You can make a motion with the consent, you can ask the chair to make a motion and you can make a motion. You can do it redundantly if you want more actions recorded. We spent a lot of time doing that, I think. So either that's important or consensus that needs to be captured by minutes is important. But you've spent a lot of time today saying actions are important. So record the actions.
Thank you. Priscilla?
I just think there's a lot that's ridiculous going on. And if several of us can't remember the last time the position was advertised, that indicates that either it was a very long time ago or it was a very ineffectual campaign. And so let's try again.
Or
Please.
you weren't on the board.
There was a minute taker when I was on the board for the first umpty-ump months. Enough.
Right, and Ralph ran into some health issues that continue to this day. And so he's unable to work.
As I said,
so
I'm happy to be paid to do that job because we have precedent in other offices, right? So I'm happy to collect an hourly wage for minute taking and serve in this position, right?
Well, let's back up and pay everybody who's done the job.
Point of order, I have a motion on the table. Did anybody second it?
I didn't hear a motion, actually.
I move that the
I didn't.
select board follow the statutory description of minutes found at 1 VSA 312B1.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
Reluctantly, yes.
Priscilla?
No, because I don't think they'd be helpful minutes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a no. All right, this is my last set of minutes that I will take for this board. I don't know who's going to be taking them in the future, but I wish them luck. All right, moving on.
Brennan has his
Brennan.
hand up.
I just wanted to ask the board the question of, we have advertised this in the past, and I, off the top of my head, couldn't tell you when we ran the last ad, but would we like to try again to find this third party that would be a member of the community or someone who would come in and attend the meetings? I guess that was really the question, I think, was we wanted somebody that was actually going to be in that room recording the minutes as they were spoken, and that's what Ralph had been able to do while he was serving in the role. That's difficult. I think that's probably one of the most, the least appealing pieces of the job. So if we want to have somebody that would record minutes, again, in the simplest form that they are, by watching the tape after the fact, I think that's probably possible to find. We would just have to stipulate that that's what we're looking for, because before we were telling them specifically, we want people to be at the board in person to take the minutes, because we didn't always trust the tape and the technology. I think that was a piece of that decision. So I guess I'm just seeking some guidance here, because we certainly can try to look again for a outside source for minutes. But what is the board's pleasure there?
Priscilla?
I think it's very important for the minute taker to be in the room to get the feel of the meeting. And I think it would be very important and very desirable if all members of this board were in the room also.
Thank you. Mary?
I think it would be worth it to advertise for a minute taker that could work from the tapes, but I do think there needs to be backup of a board member or two recording the motions in the meeting, just in case something goes wrong with the tape. Because, otherwise, I mean, it's hard for us even a minute or two after thinking up a motion to remember what it is. I think you really do have to have someone writing it down or have it in a reliable recording so that it is properly, written down. And as far as the remarks about the tone, I think whatever person you get, hey, could we do AI? With AI, we will have a very consistent tone. But I think any human taking the minutes is going to have their own tone, whether or not they keep it stripped down or not.
Can I make a suggestion?
Well, Marcia had her hand up first, Roger.
I was going to suggest that, I guess Priscilla needs to read the open meeting law again. And I would also suggest that Mary and I'd be willing to do one a month under how we just voted to do the motions. If Mary's willing to do the other one, then that's done. And then if we find somebody, we need another motion to change it so that we're going to have a minute taker, or else we're going to ask the minute taker to follow the motion that we've just approved. Description of the minutes.
I think.
All right, Roger, go ahead.
I think in other communities, and I believe this is permissible if you're, I'm not sure if it's permissible if you're a non-charter town, but I believe you're allowed to elect a clerk amongst the group. And so you can elect a clerk, and that person will be responsible for recording just the motions, let's say, and in recognition that that is additional labor, you may adjust the clerk's compensation by the voters. So you would, we've had a lot of conversations about, stipend versus hourly wages and appropriate roles. So I think it is appropriate for a chair and perhaps a clerk to receive a nominal amount more money in a stipend form than the rest. And so you would have to get elected or take on the role of the clerk, and you know that you would be doing that for $500 extra, and the task of just recording the actions would be what you would be doing. So you could do that.
And we're gonna have an election in November.
Well, the statute says that only the auditor can recommend an increase in the stipend for select board members, so we cannot give ourselves a raise.
What statute is that?
You ask the voters, I'm saying you would ask the voters to increase the stipend for 2 select board positions. I don't know, though, as a non-charter town, if we are allowed to have a clerk. It was just a suggestion. We're not even supposed to be talking about this. I don't think it's not on the agenda.
Well, before I came on this board, the assistant to the town manager was the person taking the minutes. And that person was coming in later in the day on board meeting days so that it was an 8 or a 10-hour day, whatever it ended up being, depending on how long the meeting went. And for some reason, that practice was discontinued. Because I wasn't on the board, I was not privy to whatever explanation was given. But we've tried to limp along and figure out the best way to take these minutes. And I don't know that we can pay ourselves to do this. And I'm very frustrated that there's no interest in having context in our minutes of how we came to make these motions and these decisions. And I feel demoralized. Marcia?
So we have a motion. We know what we're doing for the moment. I suggest that we move on. And just to clarify, I looked up quickly what you were talking about with the statute. 24 VSA 933, when a town does not fix the amount of compensation to be paid by such officers, select board, and town employees, the select board shall fix and determine the same, except as to their own pay, which shall be fixed by the auditors at the time of the annual town audit. If the town has voted to eliminate the office of auditor and the voters fail to fix the compensation to be paid to members of the select board members shall be compensated at the rate which they were compensated during immediately preceding year. So can we just move on right now? And since Pam is refusing to do any more minutes, Mary, I had asked if you might be interested in sharing it with me.
Yes, and I won't accept any compensation for this work. I consider it part of the work of being on the select board.
Agreed.
Only all offices agree, yeah.
And some towns pay their chair more than the other members of the board in recognition of the extra work. We don't do that here, and I'm just not willing to continue to do all the extra work of the chair and do the minutes. It's more than I can bear. So we shall move on. The next one is receipt of correspondence.
We did approve the minutes, didn't we?
No.
I don't think so.
You're right, we did not approve the minutes.
Because
we launched into this
We got crabby.
diatribe about what
We
will
got
be in them.
crabby.
So I am not in favor of Marcia's changes, and I would point out that the comment that Brennan made, that is a comment that was made in the meeting by Cheryl Lindbergh, and I just didn't attribute that comment to her. She said the listers work with the town clerk, finance, zoning, and the town manager's office. So including the listers and department head meetings seems like a reasonable request to keep everyone informed. That was a quote from Cheryl. So I just didn't give
That's fine.
attribution.
No, I wasn't clear in the way it was written. If that was attributed to
and that-
Cheryl, then that makes
right.
sense.
And that's a
I
great
was-
example of the problem with the way these minutes are done.
Right, which is why I'm quitting. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve the June
I'd like to
26th
move,
minutes?
I move to approve the June 26, 24 minutes as presented, not amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I think we've had enough discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
No.
Roger?
no.
And I'm a yes, so motion passes. Okay, receipt of correspondence. We have the letter from Chris Katuki on the opioid settlement funds. And if I recall correctly, we said we would take this up in our discussion of potential articles for the March 2025 ballot to discuss whether we wish to create this fund that he is proposing. Peter Orner has once again given us some information about the Moore Lane Bridge, which was discussed earlier in the town manager's report. William Rigby also expressed his concerns about Moore Lane Bridge. Paul Manganello gave us an email with a link to an article about the benefits of walking. Laura Brown gave some additional information about her concern about us appointing Peg Marins to the Conservation Commission. We have a report from the Shared Energy Coordinator, Harry Falconer. There's a lot of really good information in this report, including the number of hours billed. I would encourage everyone to read this. Like I said, there's some great information in here about energy-related topics, including green procurement policies. Harry is working on trying to gather policies from other towns, and that might be something that would help Roger in working on that policy for us. Cheryl Lubin and Sue Pittiger wrote about their concerns about the Moore Lane Bridge. We have the warrant number 1142 in the packet that was scheduled to be approved at our July 10 meeting. Because we canceled the meeting, I signed on behalf of the board as an off-cycle warrant, so that those payments could go out. And I think that is it for correspondence. I would entertain a motion to accept the correspondence.
I move to accept all correspondence.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd be interested in getting from the SEC, their new name. I'd like a summary of their green procurement policies, because we don't need to recreate a wheel if they've got one that they've developed that's works.
Right, I was suggesting that maybe Roger could reach out to Harry and get the benefit of his research.
Well, that's another example. We need to say, does everybody agree that Roger should do that, or should it be the town manager?
I think since we already asked Roger to, develop policy, it should be Roger.
So if everybody agrees.
Well, Roger might like to say yes or no. Might like to have a choice, but.
Well, however Roger wants to go about getting the information, if he wants to get it through Brennan or if he wants to go direct to Harry, I have no preference. But I agree that we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. There are other towns out there who have put together these policies, and it would be lovely to have something to work with. And so I'm sure Roger would appreciate having that information that Harry says he is in the process of gathering. Okay, if there are no other further comments or questions, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Thank you. Okay.
And I understand that the board has tacitly agreed to have Roger reach out to the SEC head.
Or the town manager, however he prefers to go about it. Yep. Okay. Department head reports. We've got a finance report and I briefly discussed this with Brennan, and while there appears to be a $600,000 surplus at this point in time, we should not count on that being the final number, because there will be additional entries that are made to book expenses and maybe some adjusting entries or whatever. So, but we did have more revenue than anticipated. And we will probably have a surplus of some amount, but I think we should wait until we get the audit to determine what we will do with the surplus this year and not make any assumptions. So we have the finance report. We have the reserve fund report from finance. We have a report from the fire chief, from the police chief, and from the department director. So does anybody have any questions or comments on any of those? Okay, seeing none. We are at the end of our agenda, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will vote on this, and it is currently 9:51 p.m. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. We are adjourned at 9:51 p.m.